Welcome to the May 16th meeting of the Barrington Planning Board. First order of business, I will introduce members of the board, starting with Buddy Hackett, Andrew Knapp, Andrew Manalikas, Bob Tessier, Ron Halley, and I'm John Bristol. Yeah, we also have Vanessa Price, town planner, John Huckins, the zoning administrator, and Barbara Irvine, planning and land use administrative assistant. Next order of business is to review and approve the minutes for May 2nd. Any comments or questions or corrections? Question.
On line 154, the request for a waiver. Do we normally put who voted against or no there? Is that?
That was the 3 2 names?
Well, no.
What names?
No.
Oh, yeah, you're right, yeah.
Is that typical or am I mistaken?
We didn't really go through this.
No, we voted. We got 3-2, we got to vote. Yeah. Yeah. We can look at the question one thing.
There might not have been a motion made.
Explain.
So this is line 154 in reference to the Birch Lane category 3.
We voted, I just wonder whether we normally we make a vote, we say who was yes, who was no. Even later, even though it was the, I'm just not sure if that's the vote.
Well, usually it's like this, since it's a recommendation, it's the majority of the recommendation. I can go back and review the minutes.
If that's the correct by now, I just didn't.
Yep.
Was it clear?
Okay, we'll verify.
With that.
Other than that, comments?
Okay, anybody else? Not hearing anything, I'll make a motion to accept and approve the May 2nd, 2023 minutes as written.
Second.
Roll call, Buddy Hackett. Yeah.
Abstain. I wasn't here. I can read them, but I don't know if they're right or not.
Andy, am I?
Didn't read them.
I said I want to read them, but I still don't know. Like, there's all I was on today.
Updates.
It looks like I have a lot to talk about. I'll try to be short and sweet. Some training opportunities. If you haven't really tried to sign up, I think you may have missed the deadline, but May 17th, hard travel, it's NHMA. Talking about roads essentially. So I would be taking training, what do we know? May 18th, it's a make them work your housing and community. And on June 1st, local safety road stop. NHMA are hosting that as well. Anybody's interested, online to hyperlinks, otherwise we're going to screens.
May 18th one, that's the easy.
Yeah, it's like the new, I think it's the
So you
new
can
one.
catch that on the YouTube channel.
You can't make it, you can catch it later as a YouTube channel. Just want to bring up, as we all know, we also want to bring attention to people that may be online, audience, that we're looking for additional members for land use boards, planning boards. And we're looking for alternate positions. We do have another interested party that she may be submitting an application here. In ZBA, we're still looking for full members and alternate commissions. The planning board meeting probably every first and third Tuesday. Zoning board is every third Wednesday. Just a quick master plan update. The land use and transportation chapters are nearing their end, and then we come to the planning board on June 6th for a public comment period. For any revisions or comments, and they'll come back to the planning board on the 20th of June for the final hearing and adoption of both the chapters. We're forming a subcommittee for housing. Right now, we have the 2 housing members from planning board, John and Joyce. And then Tracy Hardikoff was also nominated by the select board to join. I have one resident that was interested but have not received application, so I just wanted to put it out there if there's anybody that's interested. We'll be starting in June, so we'll be our kickoff meeting. We're asking anybody that's interested in serving on the steering committee to respond by May 22nd to the land use department by filling out a volunteer application. I forgot the development status. Just to give you guys a prize of what's kind of going on. Driving around the town, Edinburgh Conservation Subdivision of 11 single-family units in broken ground. Anticipate projects begin in the next 30 days or so. Multi-family development, 80 units over here, we received their final plans. Reviewing the plans for planning board chair signature. The retail and parking site plan at 565 Franklin Pierce Highway, which is next to Milo's, was just signed tonight. I know they've been waiting. We got final plans. And with that, if there's any other questions or any other updates, anybody?
Questions, updates, anything like? Item number 5, discussion with the board for a preliminary conceptual site plan for Leadview Conservation Subdivision of Area Drive.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair,
Oh,
just for full disclosure, Mr. Ellis does a fair amount of work for TurboCam with his HVAC business, so I contract a fair amount of work that way. Just so people know, I want to make sure nobody has any
okay.
questions, comments, or concerns.
Is it up? Anybody has any problem?
Sir. Isn't that what I said? Oh,
Great, thanks. I'm Mike Siebert. I'm with Horizons Engineering. And I'm representing or helping Jake this evening. For those of you who don't know, I have been involved in this project since 2003, believe it or not. It's 2023 now, so that's way too long. I know Barbara knows. Through the good and the bad of this whole project, but luckily, hopefully Jake has purchased the kind of the latter or the northerly part of this overall project on the back side of Barrier Drive, and it's been through a couple subdivisions. I know the 2004 subdivision is still valid, and we did another one in 2013, which I think got conditionally approved but never got finalized. And so we were working off the old subdivision. I think Jake bought about 22 lots, 50 plus or minus acres, and we were looking to do with that 50 acres, which is pretty much all this rectangular area that you see, plus the hatched in areas represent either wetlands or the existing conservation areas that are already out there from the previous subdivisions. And we're laying out a potential cluster subdivision on the easterly side here of like a Barrier Drive. It's right after the corner there, and then there's a couple other lots that we were trying to just reconfigure into just standard lots, meeting the minimum 2 acres. I think those are, and obviously those two that are out there are much larger than 2 acres, which on that other subdivision actually came off of, I think it's St. Matthews, and kind of access the other way. So that's kind of the same thing, but we're just here this evening to kind of get your thoughts on a potential cluster subdivision overall on this section up here that has seen 3 different. This will be the 3rd plan here. So now, you have anything else?
It's only 3 plans in 20 years.
Put it out there.
Questions?
They do cluster.
I have one question. I took a ride.
Yeah.
The pile of rocks.
For conservation.
What's that? 25, 30 feet high?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Back then.
yeah, that's getting taken down next week.
You're gonna crush it even if you road.
Yeah, it's all getting crowded. What's all the problem then?
I guess my second question is, you configure your exit closer to, St. Matthews? So you're actually part of leading onto a class 5 road?
This right here.
Yeah,
Yeah, probably. I mean, we started, it just past that
right.
intersection there just because of our layout now, it's so
Yeah.
rectangular, but, probably I could maybe shift that road over at the front a little bit and swap things around. Maybe
I guess one way of doing it is start at the town line. Which is class 5 road and actually bring that road, section of that road up to town standards. Just beyond your exit.
Right.
On your end.
Yeah, and if, so this is a town road,
Right.
right, to St. Matthews, so if we couldn't make a curve work right there, could, take just upgrade that road to that intersection, for a class 6. I'm,
Yes,
class 5
Yeah,
up to that intersection.
I kind of thought of the neighbor across the street. I guess there's a private road.
Yeah,
You each own to the center of the road, right? You'd have to
Correct.
talk to them. But that would make their 2 exits off their property easier.
Right.
You can do that.
Yeah.
So if you went to the town line, where the dirt starts, you also have the cistern there. You want to make sure
Right.
there's access to
Yeah.
that cistern.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have comments?
Question probably for John, did you see the variance because it's got, individual lots that are mixing?
So this is, the way I look at this, there was a couple issues that need to be addressed. So the existing lots basically give you almost like a year plan. Because those lots technically all exist, it's almost like he's doing a lot merger of all the lots that he has, and he's merging them together to do this subdivision, and the other lots become almost a standalone because they don't directly connect to the other lots. That was the issue that they had. Because when he got it from the town, there was a requirement for him to do the subdivision or merge the lots together. But he wasn't able to merge the lots that didn't connect to the other lots, so they couldn't be merged. Because the lots don't abut to each other and you can't be merged. So that's why those lots are technically left over from the standalone lots that were part of the already approved subdivisions. But that said, when the subdivision is approved, your access is approved to that subdivision. So if he's gonna use those to come down and use that private road going down, this board needs to address the idea of, is you want him to comply with the class 6 and private road because the subdivision road doesn't go by them lots anymore. So if it was left without making that decision from this board, technically he'd be straight up allowed to have a building permit because the lots were created by the planning board. But a lot like he did on King Way, you can make the requirements that he has to comply with the selectmen's policy of the private road to develop those lots. But you guys would have to make that as part of your decision when you, the whole thing, because of the merger and unmerger that's technically going on in the background of this, even though it's, because in order to create the new lot, you're actually merging the other ones together. There's moving parts to this a little bit. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here tonight, because there's a lot of little caveat stuff that's kind of involved in this whole thing.
Does the shared driveway for the 2 big lots have any impact on?
No, the shared driveway is not the issue because those 2 big lots would actually have frontage on the private road. So that's that thing about those lots and the other ones down. Well, there's actually 4 lots that would meet the conventional size and doing that didn't touch and merge to the other ones to be able to merge to those that's part of that conservation subdivision. So if they use that private road to access, that's what I'm saying. This board would have to do like you did in Finney Way, saying they have to comply with the selectmen's policy, because if you don't do that,
Then
they can just get a building permit without having to comply with the policy. That's,
does the board think it might be best to separate the conservation subdivision and work on that first, rather than trying to combine the 2 at the same time?
well, it's kind of inherent together because,
Well, I'm not saying come back later and submit.
because they don't want, they can't really merge the lots together and to create the conservation subdivision because this is all contingent upon that. And if it doesn't work, then he still has his conventional subdivision with the separate lots.
Right.
So you kind of got to work it as one thing to make it clean and valid, if you know what I'm saying.
And Mike, that brings up a question. If we do go forward, would there be two applications, like a standard subdivision application and then a conservation subdivision application? To cover, this portion plus the
That would make it cleanest to our regulations.
Yeah.
Right, and,
Kind of those.
but they still, for both of them still have like a backdoor lot line. With a merger being
Yeah,
done.
right,
Great thing
right.
too, which is, but a merger, you don't need planning board approval for, that's done just by staff, so. But without the merger, you really couldn't make any changes, but.
Yeah.
If you
Got it.
The other thing to keep in mind on a private road is from St. Matthews to your shared driveway is about 1,200 feet, so. We'd like to have at 500 feet, maybe having a turnout for the fire trucks. I know it's kind of wet there, so I don't know where you would hit.
Yeah, so.
If you might hit it, what's that, Suzie Lane or?
Right, yeah, maybe
Yeah,
that could be
probably, that could be.
a turnaround, right?
That was thinking.
Nice, yeah, or a turnout, although there is wetlands on.
Yeah, when I drove down, I noticed the water was up to the edge of the road, so I can only imagine some about somebody over the road.
Yeah.
And one more question, on the sheet, you say 46.1 acres or 60.2% of the total lot will be in conservation.
Well,
Okay, and that means 30 point whatever is gonna be developed, so that's not true.
I guess we'll have to work on that a little bit.
Okay,
What I did was I took the whole thing,
yeah,
including the open spaces that existed. And those numbers are all worked into there. I think that the numbers are more like 30 acres plus or minus are being utilized for the conservation subdivision. And then if you subtract off this 7 acres that's owned by the town and the 9.5 acres, it's already a conservation subdivision owned by someone else. There's about 16 or 18 acres, so we're over the 50% of the open space. And then, we're adding all this
yeah.
new open space in.
About the 50% that can't be wet or undeveloped
Of the,
of the conservation.
this,
Of the conservation.
of the conservation land.
Open space, you can't have more than 50%. It's-
50% of the required
Yeah.
open space,
Right.
not the total.
Yeah, 50% of the required.
So the 50% of the total lot would have to be open space, so 25% would have to be uplands, but if you
Okay.
gave more than 50%,
Right.
you can have wetlands encompassing more than half. of
Sure,
that.
yeah,
It's-
yeah. But just looking at it, it looks like I have more upland than wetland, but I'll have to get that calculated. Yeah, sure.
John, the thing I was talking about though, I didn't. The one on the end road had a variance because they had two individual lots. Yeah, and,
They were part of a conservation subdivision, a whole straight up conservation subdivision. This, if they're basically almost gonna have like two applications because they're merging the lots to create the conservation subdivision, but then lots don't touch, they can't merge them to be part of that same land, but they already have standalone lots that were approved because of the previous subdivision. So that's where it's kind of different than the Young Road was coming in, it was all one application. So that 100-foot buffer that goes around, has to go around the whole conservation subdivision. But if they don't merge those lots as part of them, because they can't, because they don't touch, then those are even conventional lots that don't have that 100-foot buffer going around. Like what I'm saying, this kind of has a whole bunch of,
well, the mixing of housing alternatives are not permitted in conservation subdivision.
I know, but but I'll back up one more time.
Okay.
So the lots he's merging to make the conservation subdivision are all just the conservation subdivision. The lots that aren't being merged aren't part of that conservation subdivision. They're part of lots that already exist because of the previous subdivision, except for the access from the previous subdivision is no longer valid because of how it got broken up. That's why I said you guys have to make sure you do the access showing that comply with the selectmen's policy, if that's the route you choose to make those lots. So technically, when subdivisions were first started by state statutes, all they did was look at access over time. Then they started looking at land quality and uplands and all the other stuff. But originally, it was just access was the only thing I would look at. So access is the primary reason behind the subdivision, and the access that was approved in that past subdivision would no longer be valid to these, but you guys would have to do something to make sure the access works for them lots as part of your decision. I hope I'm not confusing you. I'm trying to.
So basically on the back right side, I own 32 acres with all this and those two acre lots. So I'm separating, because these are all individual lots right now. On the paper I filled out, I wrote down which lots I was using.
Yeah.
So those two acre lots are staying there. And then that would leave me with 29 acres from the back right all the way to the front. The subdivision up front is using 11.2 acres of the 29. So I'm giving up from where Suzanne comes down, that's 17 point something acres, that's going to my 50%. So those are staying away. So on that 29 acres, that's what I'm using as my, out of the 50 acres, 51 acres I bought, I'm using 29 of it as the conservation subdivision. And I'm leaving 19 on the left because I can't get between the two because the old guy owns the open space between my two lots. And then I'm leaving those other two lots at the bottom off the private road.
Yeah, back it up one more thing. When the town took the land for the non-payment of taxes, the conservation land is not taxable, so they couldn't take it. So all the conservation land that was part of that subdivision is still owned by the guy that originally did the subdivision.
Okay.
And that's what's causing the block about all the stuff being connected, because they don't connect. And then because he owns that, if he built out the original subdivision, he wouldn't be able to deed the road to the town because he only owns the center line of the road. And the other guy still owns the other center line of the road. And unless they can buy it off of him, they can't deed the road to the town. And that was part of the reason for coming in and doing this, because even if you built the other subdivision out, he's stuck with a road that he can't deed to the town, and the town wanted to deed him to him if it was going to be approved as a subdivision. Then, like I said, it's kind of a big can of worms because of how the land got taken and then resold. And
Now, all the smaller lots that are gonna make those two, those would just
you
require.
have the original subdivision.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you look at the USAC plan, it's the 2004 subdivision plan.
And then you can see the original blocks and how they have it, and what's going away. I think that would make things look a little clearer.
Yeah.
That's too bad it wasn't on one page, instead of having to go back and forth.
Right, this open space B is the one, this one that's out in the back here. This one right here is the one that he doesn't own, but that's owned by Bob Shields, I think. And so that separates these lots right here in the yellow that he owns, which make up this section over here, and then these lots on the front are what is mainly using as the conservation subdivision, although the open space does extend back into those other lots. They're going to be merged together, including that old Pioneer Lane.
Yeah.
I think that's called that.
So those two lots would just require a lot line adjustment.
Yeah.
Pick that up.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're gonna surrender some of the larger
Yeah.
ones.
And then all that larger lots and that's this roadway right here.
Yep.
I'd gotten a wetlands permit for that 20 or 15 years ago, and it never got built, and it'll never happen again at this point. So
It's a real country road down there.
right, yeah. Any kind of upgrade to that, just a gravel upgrade would be really good to get access into those lots. It would help.
And with the road turns, there was a creek going across the road.
Yeah, on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Right, and so if that's where the driveway would come off, so we would need to get a wetlands permit to access these.
Yeah.
These two big lots, and that's the configuration, is probably gonna change, and right now I'm showing you 22 lots, and that goes back to the
Yeah.
22 lots. It won't be 22, it'll be less.
Yeah, I see there's a few
You know,
lots and a lot of.
Yeah, like this little lot
They're
right
gonna
here.
get septic and well.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
Thing.
So I'll end up combining just a couple of those together. So there'll be 19 or 20 lots, probably something like that. Come back in the end.
Okay. Anybody else?
Just to confuse you guys a little bit, the lots that existed,
Yes.
the lots that existed in the middle, like part of the subdivision on that page three. Those were lots approved by the town at one time.
Yeah,
That Malcolm McNeil with the town,
Right.
and they get a cease and desist to take that all out, because there was a great big subdivision, but them lots were sold, so they got to stay, and the rest of the subdivision that was created, 35 years ago, all got restated and put back out before this other one come back in. I mean, there's a lot of history there.
well, those were built in 72, those two houses there, right?
Yeah, and Malcolm was the.
town-
Well, and he then helped us with this.
So I create that. Yeah, he knew this project very well.
Whoa, yeah,
Yeah, I knew the guy at 24 Gary, Jack Baker.
oh, yeah,
That's my foundation.
Yeah.
I just have one more thing.
Yeah.
On the conservation easement for the land that's already there on the subdivision. Since I'm giving up so much in the back, am I allowed to see the light gray on the front lots up here?
From that
On the
side.
bottom, right
Oh.
down there?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to move that to my back section where I'm giving up the rest of that land? So on those front lots, they have more buildable area, because that's a conservation easement from the original subdivision.
That would be a state land trust thing because of you taking land that's already put in preserve and taking it out and adding stuff to some other spot. That would be through them. Not through the board.
yeah, that shows up on this, sheet. It's on 5 of 9 on that subdivision, you can see, you put a,
We don't have that one.
oh, yeah.
They just had the original.
Oh, okay, well, on those lots coming around this corner right here that I showed this on Ray, that's a conservation easement that we put on there, and this was the access point from Heritage Lane. So you get it, you could get on there and then walk all along onto that back. That's what we would maybe try to reconfigure.
I'm assuming to do that, we would have to go through, give conditional approval with it so that they could then go to the state and say, hey, the board's already given approval on this. We need the state approval to unconserve this and reconserve it over in this area.
It's more open space, and that's being taken because the state not only his rights, but the rights of the people that own the other lots out there that are
Right.
bottom. Because technically they have rights to that open space area.
Mhm.
And that's the reason why the state land trust has to get involved, because it's a legal issue.
Right.
Like I said, this has got a lot of,
Enough to go.
it's got a lot of issues here, yeah.
Anything else? Big thing is getting to a class 5 road.
We're good then.
So are we allowed to upgrade that to get to that point?
So
If
if you have legal access to that road.
Yeah.
And you upgrade it to a class 5 or better road to meet that subdivision standard, then. And that dead end from that intersection going around through doesn't exceed, was 1,000 feet that we.
Right. Yeah, I got that,
Yeah, it looks like it's close, you hit a buffer, looks like right
Yeah, it
across
looks like
the
it's
road, so.
So, but it goes from where the loop road comes around to where it starts coming in. It's not where it goes on your property. It's gonna be what, I mean.
Right here.
Yeah, it's not from there. It's gonna be, yeah.
From
Yeah,
here.
yeah, that's when you're building your class 5 from.
Right.
That's when the dead end would start. It wouldn't start on the property,
So you can't.
Okay.
which might affect that 1,000 feet
okay,
a little bit. Or you might have to roll
back
that
that up.
back just a little bit.
And go to the town line so you access the
And the
system.
closer you can get to that class 5 portion that already exists, it'd be that much less than you would have to look at is your total length of the dead end. So
Okay.
Now, if he's reaching those two big lots there, it is 1,200 feet from,
those lots in the back,
yeah,
I'll see, because of what those exist, we can't merge them back to the other ones. That's why I was saying,
right,
you'd want to make it a condition that they comply with the town's private road standard, because that existing private road, which will give 10% of the house value of upgrade to that road for each one of them houses built, which would improve that road considerably from what it is now.
right. It's all be raised up.
What is that, 5 houses up there or no?
It's three.
Three.
Two lots for those, at least three down at the end, right?
Well, one guy owns 3 lots,
Yeah.
so you have 2 that are side by side and then 1.
Oh, I thought there was 3 down at the end and there was 2 on the left when you first start down there.
Well, yeah, so there's the one on the first, like right as soon as you come onto the road on the left, then you got the Mason guy, and then you got the 2 on the other.
Yeah, the total of 4 that use that as a private road.
And being 1,200 feet, fire department.
Technically, that already exists, and other people are already out there, so,
It's an existing road.
yeah, so.
Even though you added 2 more.
Well, and I'm sure the fire chief is gonna weigh in on what it is, saying what he believes there should be for upgrade on that. And it's probably gonna be along that. That's 20-foot travel way, that's,
Two.
yeah, similar to what the selectmen thing has. So you could look at it 2 different ways, you could look at it, that's something that you wanted to have it as your private road thing, have that done so the lots can be created, I have them do through the selectmen's policy. Like you talked about on that, what was it, Lake Point Road, I think
Yeah.
it was, where you talked about having that done as part of the subdivision and not done as part of the selectmen's policy. You guys had that opportunity to take either direction on that because of what Laura had told you before when you were talking about that.
And these guys can help you at any point. If you get additional.
All right, thanks.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
You taking any comments from us?
Oh, yeah. The public comments.
It's a conceptual, there's nothing.
Only, nothing is firm. On either side.
We do need to do those.
Next, we have item B, the Barrington Recreation Summer Event Series.
Listen to yourself.
Recognize, it looks sweet.
Got the rec director and one of the councilors.
Thanks, Dan. Summer camp director, welcome,
All around.
right?
Yeah.
Jessica Tennis, your esteemed recreation director, Connor McIver, your town administrator. With a really exciting opportunity that we have for the community events. And the purpose of coming before you, let me just pop up on the screen here. This one, which I think you have a printed copy of. Pretty rudimentary. We make that full screen, close the attendees, Vanessa, and then make that full screen, get it a little bit bigger. So as most of you know, Community Way leads to the Christmas Dove newly constructed road a number of years ago. Barrington's one and only sidewalk. We want to get that sidewalk used. We want to see people walking on that sidewalk. The lot right next to that road is owned by Holy Rosary Credit Union. And they don't have any immediate plans to do anything with the lot as far as a building or anything like that. But they want to be a part of the community. They want to promote community events and the like, which is what brought us together with Holy Rosary and the Recreation Department to say, what could we do with the lot? What could the Recreation Department do with the lot if Holy Rosary was willing to underwrite an event series, offer the land, the use of the land, et cetera. And so the idea, the cream that floated to the top was a concert series, summer concert series. That, 4 or 5 events through the summer on evenings that allow the community to come together. There's good parking there. There's a decent spot right in the center of town, good visibility. And so that idea snowballed, and I won't steal Jesse's thunder. She will talk a little bit about where the plans look right now as far as practically. But once we started talking about that, we said, okay, well, what is it going to look like from a land use perspective? Because it's town events, but it's on a privately owned lot.
If this was down on Ramsdale, we probably wouldn't be talking to you about it in the same way. But we want to make sure that two things happen. One, that for the June 6th meeting, all the abutters in the area are notified that this is being proposed. And so that they have an opportunity to come out and say their piece also. But two, to give you all who see things like this and look at events and programs from a different perspective than a town administrator and recreation director, to say, hey, have you thought of that? What about this? I'm not prepared to answer all Ron's questions about lighting, but things like that. So, yeah, so idea session now to talk about what you all think we need. I think what we, myself, Vanessa and John have arrived at is it would be appropriate at the June 6th meeting to have a use approval from, a site use approval from the planning board. We'll be asking for waivers of site plans and basically everything that, that we don't think we need for something like a temporary event series. But the biggest structure is we're planning to have some sort of a temporary structure on the site that would stay there for the summer. At first, it was probably going to be like a canvas top tent, but those are ripe with problems. And we actually have some things lined up and decent opportunity to have some sort of timber framed open pavilion, less than 600 square feet, but something that would be temporary there. So if and when Holy Rosary uses that lot for something else, we could disassemble it, move it somewhere else, and have it available for that. So this is the site. You can see the driveway from the old house that was there. The bandstand 20 feet by 15 feet. There's a good flat part of the grass that's there. It would essentially face Route 9. And so seating would be both on the paved area and the grassy area. And there's a good stand of trees that separate the two lots that create some good shade in the summer. So the idea that the direction was to keep lighting, keep people from looking at the sun setting, but have sun and shade. And then an area in the front with food trucks. Temporary power would come from Eversource on Pole Street. It's on that side of the road there. Like I said, parking would be the Christmas Dove parking lot, which is actually part of this lot. The sidewalk, did I mention the sidewalk? You know, see people walking up and down that sidewalk. What a fantastic summer exercise that would be. And then, so Jesse, do you want to talk a little bit about the event itself?
So we are kind of proposing 4 different weeks. So we would be starting the second week of July, and we would hope to be basically running every other week. So our hope was to have that be on Thursday nights from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. We have kind of put our feelers out there within the community, and so we tentatively already have 3 of the 4 bands kind of lined up pending approval from the planning board and making sure that all the logistics work out. So we are very excited about the opportunity. I think that this is kind of one of those low-key family type of events where you can come from, you know, people of all ages and kind of be able to just enjoy a low-key event. So we're really looking forward to the opportunity and just starting to kind of get people's interest, and like Connor said, get people down there, get people kind of space and seeing the potential, and collaborating with Holy Rosary and Christmas stuff. So.
Thoughts?
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. I gotta, yeah, your name was again?
Oh, Mr. McIver.
Okay. So, that's the only sarcasm I'm gonna have for this.
I doubt it.
You're probably right. So, and my questions that I'm gonna ask are gonna lead to other questions. Just who's funding this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's a plan to be a free event, so free to residents. All of these things cost money. And so the Holy Rosary has offered to fund a large portion of whether it's the structure, donating the land, things like that. But the idea is that each event, each concert would have like a title sponsor or however you.
Like an event sponsor, so we have like a concert series sponsor and then a different event sponsor for each night. So.
I don't need all the detail, just because, like I said, just to feed my other questions.
Please.
How big are the bands that are gonna be playing?
unknown. I don't know that number off the top of my head, but I would say roughly probably anywhere from 3 to 6 people.
You're talking like a regular type, like go to the VFW band type of thing?
Like Metallica and.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not with him. The whole, no, because the reason I'm asking, back in my youth when I was a rock and roll star, we've run into situations like this before where whatever you build, there's gonna be a cost. It almost seems like a throwaway cost. And if Holy Rosary doesn't care about that, then that makes this a moot point. But depending on the size of the band, you can have a flatbed trailer that's very temporary, does what it's supposed to do. I've been in, 4 and 5 piece bands where we set up all our equipment on there, had plenty of room on even a small, like a construction trailer, like a 30-foot, but you could get something like 45, 48 or 53, whatever it is. And it just wheels in there, build a pair, a set of stairs that go up to it, up and down. And it's a lot less cost and labor and everything going into it. And then the other thing is bringing the power in, that might be a thing that if you had generators, it might be easier than bringing the power in. I mean, just to throw it out there, but I think that the idea is a great idea. The challenge too with food trucks, if that's not a paved area, a very solid area, food trucks are very heavy for what they look, and they sink to the axles pretty quickly. Yeah, I've had that happen a few times where we've had and they don't tow out easy either. So yeah.
That's good feedback. Let me ask you, with the flatbed trailer idea, did you have any cover?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you use for cover?
So initially, this was a place up on Route 16. It's Harley Jack's, I think it's called now. So originally, there was just a small trailer out back, and we put one of those easy ups, like a 10 by 20 easy up, to double size one, and that was fine as long as it was brought down and put back up. You leave something like that up, it's not enough structure that if you get a windy storm, it's going to blow away. But it takes literally 10 minutes to set all those up.
Right.
And I'm just thinking about the cost. If whoever, it doesn't matter what the people see, it's going to be what they hear. That type of thing. If that's what you're looking to do as a community thing, I'm just looking out for your costs.
Yeah, that's really good feedback, and some of the bigger conversations around these events is what is that going to look like? Because a lot of the bands, have requirements about cover and size for the equipment that they're going to have and whatnot. And I think, to your point, and it's well taken, I think the only way it makes sense to build something or have something built is if we would have a plan for it to move to when this event series is done or that lot's used for something else. So it's still something. So it's still a pavilion, a gathering place, an entertaining place or something like that. So yeah, notes well taken. If anything changes between now and June 6th, to be the first one.
You sure?
Well, I mean, with
This
the
has been recorded, so.
report.
Oh my God.
Okay. Like maybe James Taylor or something else like that fits in.
Oh, what was that? Andy Knapp Cooperative is one of the titles.
Just two thoughts that I see. I think having the food trucks up toward the road is good because food trucks almost always have a generator or something that they're running. The bandstand may actually, depending on which way you have everything set up, either be a little close or so placement within food truck noise and road noise are two things just to, I'm sure you've thought of them, but.
Yeah, it's great feedback. So I'll tell you the first time we met out there on the site was the couple of days following the 4 inches of rain that Barrington got. And so it was probably as wet as the lot has ever been, but it was good because it gave us like a good indication of like, okay, this is going to be as wet as it's going to be. And so we even looked, if you can see my cursor, I know it's small, but we even looked like back here across this drainage area. What a cool, and it kind of like slopes up a little bit, like what a cool spot people could be out front. But it was really wet through there and it's a tough risk. And I don't think, none of this is absolutely set in stone, but that's good feedback for the proximity of everything, for sure.
I mean, I think from the point of view of getting permission, I mean, obviously meet the hours, which you mentioned. But also if you're gonna use this lot in the parking lot, we're looking for some kind of, statement that you're allowed to do this. I mean, typically, when someone comes in as an agent for somebody else, the legal document says they're authorized to speak on their behalf. So that would be something that I think would be, required.
Absolutely, yeah, we have that. It was signed today. The target was to make sure you had it for your June 6th meeting.
Okay.
But yeah, you have that.
Okay.
Yep, great point, though.
And then we have noise ordinance, as you know, so the property line, so I don't know. That's gonna be an issue with the band, but it's out there, so.
Yeah, and the noise ordinance now goes to 10 o'clock. So the events would be over before the noise ordinance. The noise ordinance changed. It doesn't have a decibel limit. The old noise ordinance had even a decibel limit during the day at the property line. That noise ordinance is gone. The noise ordinance now is based on disorderly conduct largely, which there's plenty of case law about. But I think the really important part of that is notifying the abutters for when we come back June 6th and making sure they are all fully aware of what's being proposed and have the opportunity to participate in that process, share any concerns, and they can make it. Fortunately, it's mostly a commercial area, but plenty of houses peppered in there.
Yeah. I know you said you're not taking pushes on lighting, but you're using the parking lot, it's gotta be some, where's the nighttime event, you have some lighting, they take temporary lighting, there's something so.
Yeah, and we're thinking, the night events that happen, like the soiree and things like that, that bring people out there. There's some good examples of what works and what doesn't, and so it's an excellent point. Super. Hope to see you all there.
Ron will be there with his headlamp.
You gotta call them both. Christmas stuff and the credit union, right?
I just got it from the credit.
The union owns that.
Yeah, credit
You
union.
use the parking lot over there.
But it's part of the, Helen Rosary owns that lot.
Yeah, it's an
If you
easement.
look here,
It's an easement, and then you use the parking lot.
Okay.
it's a good point. I mean, this is all in conjunction with Garth and the Christmas stuff. We can certainly get one if it made you feel more comfortable, but
Yeah.
Different.
I think he's like August 17th.
So we're gonna use the parking lot, I think we're gonna improve the use of the parking lot, it'd be good to make sure they have the authority to.
yeah, but you understand that Holy Rosary owns that parking lot?
Yeah, it's all part of the whole resident property.
Right.
Not,
Okay, yes, Holy Rosary owns the Christmas stuff parking lot.
okay.
Awesome. We'll look forward to seeing you on June 6th. Any concerns with the waiving the site plan requirement or the site plan requirements and all the rest?
We'll find out on June 6th.
Yeah.
You're well trained, Mr. Tessier.
3.1 is just says it needs an engineered plan, but then is it 3.2 all the requirements? We know we've over them? 100%.
That's a proposal. If you feel otherwise, speak now, please.
I mean,
Or
is that all we're gonna get? That thing right there? That we're talking about? Well,
It's up for discussion.
I'm hesitant.
You tell me this.
I'm asking, is that what you're planning right now?
Yes.
Aerosmith is doing their farewell.
What's that? Do you know anybody?
Yeah.
You have any contacts?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Just to bring it up to the board too, I think that they are probably gonna put a waiver in for fees, but the butters will be noticed, no fees will not. Probably then 16.
What we've done before is we've actually had the select board waive the fees, since it's a select board fee, the select board is the select board proposes fees, select board ratifies, like the ultimate decision maker, but.
Like with charities and stuff.
You would think a recommendation to the select board to waive the fees.
Right.
We can do that.
I know you have to be moving off lighting, but it'd be nice to have where the temporary lights are gonna be. Just so we know that it's safe to walk from the parking lot to the.
Are you gonna be there June 6th?
And then you want the big poles that go up with a great big huge spotlight that goes down over back.
Those little temporary lights at the beach tree thing, and those will be fun.
Noted. I'm thinking the articulating spotlights, really like crisscross.
Yeah.
style, that provide light pollution, is that what we want?
With the running sign that says, stop here to enjoy the day in Barrington.
You can't have the running sign.
I know.
Spend the day in bed.
And those spotlights are actually a fire hazard because it's an open flame and we can't have those anymore either.
All these rules we got in town.
I know, you can use some LED flashlights if you want.
Okay, everybody bring your flashlight. Yeah.
We'll make those.
Yeah.
And they, last time you
There's
did.
plenty of lightning bugs around. I'll keep that place lit up.
Yeah,
That's,
that's
we'll
what
put
you
that on the lighting plan for Ron, yeah.
Saving energy.
Just for safety.
Yeah. Great feedback, thanks for the time, appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next month.
Great, sounds great. Starting Monday.
June sixth. Private road application. Item number A, review of request from building permit, Nathan Ferry Gray, 345 Downhill Road. Category 2 on class 6, road, actually class 6. I mean. Class 6 together, that, yep.
All right.
Nathan Gray, 345 Dry Hill Road.
And at the end of the world up there,
What's that?
you're at the end of the world up there.
Yeah, the north, I like to say if Barrington's the diamond, we're at the very top of the diamond.
For the shiniest point. There you go.
And like a diamond. Rap song, right? Come on. No. I've got it. Yes.
What's the square footage of the proposed?
It's 1,200 square feet currently, and it's just under 300 square feet.
Oh, okay.
But you're converting, so no extra square footage, right? I said you converting storage.
Yeah, it's existing space that we converted into a bedroom. It's a second floor apartment, a studio apartment, and you have to go through a front door. Actually, it's 2 doors, 2 egresses into the storage area, and then you go up the stairs into the existing apartment. So we just want to utilize that kind of garage space as there's no garage doors. So we just use that, but there's I'd like to turn that into a bedroom.
And I see this, I saw some here for proposed septic system.
Yeah, we went through that process as well. Yep.
That's my major concern.
And in the bedroom, you put in a washer dry.
Yes, it's would be a wash dry for down here as well. Inside of a closet.
I mean, I have concerns about these things, but mostly because we're into the septic, but if you put a new septic in.
I was gonna get a state approved design. He doesn't have to put the new one in until the existing one building without the state rules.
Which I have that.
So that's why the Newbury thing was in here. It's a single design.
The EnviroSeptic.
We have to have a state approved system by state requirements from DES. Because of the expansion of use, you have to show that you have, what.
The ability to, yeah.
But the state does go on to say that if this system hasn't failed, you don't have to put the new system in. Until it does go on to failure, because a lot of times the impact and the use is very similar. The system was less, 5, 6, maybe 10 years, but we know how much they pumped it in. So the state's basically saying you don't have to spend a whole bunch of money. It's not necessary.
It was adding bedroom, you resigned by name of bedroom. So.
And that's why you have to have a new septic design.
Right.
Okay.
Which I did. I do have.
Yeah.
I do have that. Yeah, and they added the additional bedroom to it.
This one complies with the current things for the category 2. The one you had last week, the one where they added volume, they do category 3. And then I want to change it to living space. So If that gets changed by the selectmen in the future, that one that just had to do a category 3 would be a category 2, and this one would be a category 3, and I'm getting it's category 2. Because it's the increase in living space, to me, it's more the impact than it is with cubic feet, but regulations is written cubic feet, not living space.
That's just a recommendation to the board for their consent agenda.
Everybody agree with that?
I mean, I'd hate to have them come back. There's a small forest that's killed off here to give us this, so I'm in support.
It is the stuff that I needed for my
Yeah,
issues.
all the permits and everything that are there. I'll make a motion to send a recommendation to the select board in support of the category 2 application.
Roll call.
Nap aye.
Indiana.
Yeah.
When's that meeting? Those-
So the select board, Tiffany and the administration office will be able to give you an idea for it. They're trying to get on that thing, but I can't comment.
Okay.
They got a deadline because they gotta send out notices.
Yeah.
So it
But
depends
they
on.
already to it.
I'll reach out to her.
Yeah, I'll tell Tiffany,
They'll be able to give you-
she can't really schedule a time until they get through this process, and you gotta find out to her when.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, we have one more. Do we have review from the clerk for building department? Kelly?
So I think that this is online with,
On road. February 2.
is there someone on the phone for Small Road? I think we were having difficulty earlier. I think you're unmuted, but, if we can't hear you, do star 6.
Can you hear me?
You do have something in there.
There we go.
So you have something in the chat box as well.
I think you came on, can you speak?
Hello?
I think I was just.
Can you hear me?
Unmuting my speakers.
Oh.
It's like lighting up, but there's
Yeah.
nothing coming through.
Hello?
There
Oh.
we go. We can hear you.
You could just hear me?
I
Hello?
just heard her here, so you try changing your speakers on the TV. Turn the volume up, or you can turn the speakers on your computer.
I'll see that.
Hello?
You can hear her. Here, I don't know why I keep typing.
Hello? Hello?
Can you hear us now? Yes. Just because this is, category 2, and it's just the garage. You guys could probably go through your stuff because it's a pretty simple, straightforward one. It's not like there's gonna be a lot of questions asked back and forth. There's no road acronyms and all that stuff.
I have one question tonight. Probably for you. Does this need to go to the ZBA?
Yes, it does. They're on the schedule for tomorrow. They actually had an approval there 3 years ago, but the timeline has lapsed because the person that got it had sold it to someone else. So now they're coming in to get the same variance that they had before.
For the long structures?
Because of the gravity and the setback, yeah.
Okay, so it's not.
Right. But it'll be, if they don't get the variance, then it wouldn't go forward anyway. So let's say someone was on a class 5 road, a regular town road.
Yeah.
They wouldn't get a building permit for me if they didn't get the variance. So you're in that same situation. The fact that they're on a private road really, you're here just looking at access, so you're, so if that variance goes through, I give them a building permit. If it doesn't go through, they don't get a building permit, no matter what, you need a road decision.
Yes, I get from the non-conforming structures, I get the one. Where's it allow them to replace the structure?
They're not replacing it.
They've already been torn down.
Yeah, that thing got torn down years ago and they got a variance to put a new one out. The person didn't act on it. So now the variance ran out, so they're coming back in to ask for a new variance. So I can't give them a permit to do it unless the ZBA grants them a variance for that setback. If they give them a variance, they're exempt from that zoning requirement because they're gonna ask for an exemption to that requirement. For the setbacks.
Only 16.5 on one end and 3 feet in the other.
It was really close, but there was, like, it's the same variance they got before, but the other one had a structure on it that they could use as part of that setback originally, but when that got taken down, it's no longer there. But I think the ZBA might look at the past circumstance and what happened in the timeline. See, it used to be, once you got a variance, it was good for life. And then a few years ago, that got changed to where they're only good for 2 years now, and the timeline ran.
Any more questions? The only other thing I would say is the 5.1.3, they need a plan. It's going to show existing proposed property lines, wells, septic tanks, and leach fields. I didn't see septic or leach fields on the plan.
It was in the front part of the lot.
So it was, that's all something that's gonna be part of the plan, the zoning board has to get each field.
But it doesn't have anything to do with access,
It has
right?
nothing to do with that.
We're only here to act on access.
Oh,
The zoning board will.
Yeah, I need a certified.
And they are looking for a new number.
And I do need a certified plot plan, because it's less than an acre, you're 100% right, that plot plan is gonna be the same plan that the submitted is gonna be.
Okay.
And that's the plot plan showing all the information.
All right, we're ready to make a motion.
make a motion to approve sending the application for Derek and Melissa Sepatelli for the addition of a garage to the select board pending approval from the zoning board.
I'll second that. Roll call, buddy.
Hackett, aye.
Nap aye.
Ian, am I?
That's your.
Just the one. We have other business that they properly set on. Childcare in Barrington.
Is that the game yet?
Oh, yeah. Come up, Don.
Oh, two. You probably saw it.
To what do I owe this pleasure?
Pleasure is ours.
Funny, that's not the way I was thinking of this.
I don't remember asking, so. Okay. I am here, we are here tonight, Don Masucci, you know, as, the returning alternate to the planning board.
Make sure she gets sworn in.
Soon, yes, I think it's up for a vote on May 22nd, and then, we'll get
Should be
specifically sworn in, and yeah,
Thank you very much.
Michigan.
Shoot.
right.
Felt bad for you guys, I guess you.
A lot of people feel
Everybody.
A lot of people feel bad for us. Most people don't miss this stuff.
Jesse Tennis, Recreation Director, Tom McIver, Town Administrator. So Donna and Jesse have been working for a long time on issues related to childcare. It's most specifically connected to the town and town government through recreation programs that provide childcare, before and after care, summer camp, kids vacation camp, things like that. Donna lives in this world all the time. And across the state, everybody has been quick to identify that there are plenty of problems with childcare. The availability for families, the availability of staff members, the pay for staff members, the difficulty to establish childcare facilities or childcare programs. The list is very, very long. And I don't come from the perspective that government is the solution to every problem that exists in the world. But I think that with a problem this big, I don't think that it can be ignored at every level and it will be solved. At the May 8th meeting, we talked briefly with the select board about the fact that Jesse and Donna and others in the community have started banding together to start workshopping what we could do locally to just take care of people in Barrington, the families, the kids, et cetera. And we asked the select board for support to work on that. With no specific, hey, we plan to accomplish X, Y, or Z, it's going to turn into, A, B, or C, but to plant the seed and let the select board know that, hey, with your blessing, Jesse will work with this, I'll work with this, and the group of childcare involved people in the community. And we'll probably be coming back to the select board at some point and saying, hey, we have these ideas. What if there's a listing on the town's website that has all the childcare providers and their capacity and their contact information to make it easy for people to find, instead of just talking to BBS and, hey, there's a 50 kid wait list or whatever the number is. But anyways, how does it relate to the planning board? The planning board sees the growth that happens in Barrington before anything else, whether it's housing growth or whether it's commercial growth. And we're here tonight to encourage you to start thinking about the impacts on childcare as you're reviewing applications. Now, what does thinking about it mean? I don't really know. Jesse probably has ideas, Donna probably has ideas, but planting the seed now, because as this coalition, as this group continues to work on what can we actually do? How can we move the needle in Barrington to help Barrington families, Barrington businesses, et cetera. I expect we may be coming back to the planning board. Maybe it's zoning changes. Maybe it's regulation changes relative to asking about childcare impact. The types of questions you can ask or encouragement you can give to applicants about all of these issues. That there's no one solution, there's no, easy answer to solving the problem. But if we are all thinking about it and we're talking about it, even if it's not something we're requiring a solution for of applicants and projects, having that conversation, letting people know. I think a decent example is the proposal that came forward with the elder care campus behind Knights. So that wasn't prompted by anything, but they had this development proposal and they had childcare built into it. They recognized that what they were doing would have an impact on childcare. Maybe it was motivated by the fact that it would be easier to attract and retain the medical professionals if they could bring their kids and drop them off next door. But regardless of the motivation, that's good. That's a good thing based on the problem that exists in Barrington. And so, yeah, Donna, Jesse, please fill in the gaps of the work that's kind of ongoing and the conversations that are happening.
I mean, I think the one thing that was important for us is really trying to encompass all children of all ages. And I think that a lot of those conversations typically talk about, when you talk about the impact of the school, the number of students that are increasing, but there's, 5, sometimes almost 6 years of those years that are kind of overlooked within some of those conversations. So really just trying to kind of bring that to everybody's attention too, is looking at from like that newborn stage all the way through, 12th grade, and really kind of looking at each phase of that, and looking at the impact of that as a whole as well. So that's just one piece that I want to.
Same thing here. Definitely when we have the new kids come through that's doing a project, maybe a great question we could ask is what do you plan to do for childcare? Because it's not just teachers we need, which we need desperately, but it's facilities too. They're talking about doing them in strip malls and everything. And if you have children or grandchildren, that's probably not the best place to have your little one. So maybe that might be something we can bring across to people that come in front of us. That would definitely help. It is something that's impacting all of us. I know some of you are probably saying, well, I don't have children with. One day you're going to get old and you're going to be in a convalescent home. I hate saying that, but if there's not going to be that many workers there, people to help us make your meals, make your bed, take care of you, it's because nobody's watching their children, so they can't go to work. We're gonna push ourselves back into the COVID area where you can't go to restaurants because there's nobody there to wait on you or cook. Or go to the grocery store and God forbid, want toilet paper, it's not gonna be there. We need to really think more about it, and that's for before and after school also. School doesn't, work doesn't only work, produce between 6 hours, that's what school usually is. They need somebody to take care of those children before they go to work and after they get out of work. It's so important. I really ask this board to think about that in the future.
Thoughts or, anything, like I said, this group is going to be working on all sorts of ideas and, whether you have them now and, want to throw them out there, or if they come to you, reach out to Donna, Jesse, or myself, to start digging into. I talked with Donna a lot specifically about, the path to receiving approval in Barrington zoning wise for providing childcare. And I learned a lot that I didn't know. One of the things that stood out to me most is Donna's efforts in this area that have gone on for many years. And I think this board got to see that with one of the most recent in-home childcare proposals that came forward. Donna has helped so much in encouraging people to take the steps to do it right and check all the boxes, and it can seem daunting. But what I heard is Barrington actually does a pretty good job having approvals that aren't really onerous for childcare facilities, in-home or otherwise. That might change, I don't know.
How much of it was state?
Exactly.
So we have very little to.
In
Fire department too.
Right, for this board to be able to recognize that and say, hey, we trust the state partners, and obviously that's a factor of the zoning ordinance and regulations, but yeah, anything that you think that this group should focus on and that might relate to the planning board, and we can bring some specific ideas back, either regulations.
Bring some ideas back. I think talking to applicants about these things, without any ordinances to back it up, is, you can't, if they're doing something in childcare, you don't like it, but there's nothing in the regulations that says they can't do it. You really, get a lot. You can ask questions, but if they comply, they comply.
Right.
So I think, the real help would be some regulations, ordinances that would support childcare or, move the needle in the direction you want to move it. Absent that, I think it's tough for us to either really push it one way or the other.
Definitely.
There are projects, I've always said there are projects I don't like that I've approved and projects I like that I've disapproved. If they comply, they comply.
And that's what I asked the board, is to really think about it differently. I mean, this board has been great, really has been supportive. I'm on the state committee in different towns, and they really have a hard time. Manchester is one of them. I work with a ethnic group that is trying so hard to get licensed, and it's just one barrier after another in front of the planning board before they can even get to, to the town as far as fire and health and safety and zoning. So eventually I'd love to see, I'm going to be a big advocate to see if the state can kind of align all their zoning and stuff for childcare. It's so important. It is very important. Again, I can't even tell you how important it is. But also on another note, it has to be quality. And I refuse to work with somebody that is just doing it for money or has nothing better to do. It definitely has to be quality. And that's where I'm going to overlook Barrington as much as I can. I have those meetings once a month with in-home, see what they need, give them any information that I can give them, try to help them along to stay in their regs. So that's important. It's not just having a building to put a child in.
Suppose we could use like from site plan regulations, grant bonuses, for example, 15 square footage if they needed to for childcare, for their employees.
That's a creative idea to look at.
But we can't do that as planning board, though. That had to come from somewhere else.
At your planning board level now, you don't dictate how many children has to be in the home. You say whatever the state will allow.
Yeah.
So no matter what you do for a regulating change here, it's not gonna change the number of students that are allowed because of how our regulations are already set up. We used to dictate how many, if they wanted to increase, they had to come back to the planning board. We get away with that.
So this,
Talking about square footage.
right.
Something.
I gathered that point. So the city of Lebanon, obviously much bigger organization, more resources to get dedicated to solving, the world's bigger problems. But they've actually, they have made some really good progress at a local level in developing a framework for what can happen. To include, they streamline zoning, relative to in-home childcare. Like I said, I don't know if that's a big problem. I don't know if, it's not a problem in Barrington. We don't need to solve a problem that doesn't exist. But they've done a lot of work in that incentivizing, organization. Whether it's at the planning board level or at the town level, they received grant funds that they have been providing to childcare entities. So not city money, but they pursued the grants and are passing those down through micro grants and things like that. So it could go in a lot of different directions. Hopefully the needle will move in the right direction. It may or may not practically involve the planning board, but wanted to plant the seed so that if, we all come back in, 4 or 5 months with some practical ideas, whether it's regulation changes or potential zoning amendments. It's not the first time you've heard about it. And if any of you have ideas in the meantime, pass them along.
I think that, I don't know if anyone else here has had kids in daycare. As, my son's 14 now, but he was in daycare from early on. And, as young married couples, you decide on daycare you can afford or daycare that is convenient. And we did a lot of investigating. We did a lot of visits. And you done? Maybe. All right, because I'm going to be sarcastic when you talk again.
I'm actually agreeing with your position.
I'd rather give you a hard time.
Sir.
So in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'd love to help out to do what we can, but as a planning board, I don't see that we might be secondary, even tertiary down the road of what things happen. Because even when there's state regulations, I know that we did our due diligence and we actually went to a local daycare that was friends of ours. And, my son comes home at 2 years old with a cigarette burn in his clothes. How does that stuff happen? It's not, that's a whole different area. I think when people look at in-home daycare, they sort of pigeonhole and they say that they have to do all this, but the same thing can happen on one of the bigger places like KinderCare. You say, strip malls, KinderCare has one in Portsmouth that's in a strip mall behind McDonald's, and it's probably one of the biggest daycare, childcare places I've ever seen. But it's all about how they're run. And even if they follow the state mandates or the town mandates, they're not very strict. It's if we had the peach people in, that we would have had to highly regulate their kitchen more than the regulations that go into having a daycare open. So there's a lot more challenges than that I think we can address here with that.
It's definitely more than open the building. That's what I'm saying. It definitely has to be quality. And there's different levels of quality that we have to educate families about when they're looking for childcare. And that's what I do when somebody calls me. I don't say, oh yeah, we have an opening. No, we don't. I say, do you know the three levels of childcare? And then I try to give them some education. And of course, it's just like, you're going to go to Walmart, you're going to pay less and you're going to get a lot of variety. If you're going to you go to Macy's, you're going to pay more and you have a different quality. So that's how I can compare it for most parents understand, okay, I get it now, because I usually get a lot of money. It's a college education.
Right. But the other piece is if you look at how city planning is going on in some of the major cities, they're doing projects now where big buildings are going up, apartment buildings are going up. The first 2, 4, 5 floors of that is all commercial space, and they'll have daycare in that because they don't have parking, they don't have other things that are right there. So it's people live there, everything happens right there. They take public transportation to their job, which is only a few miles away. And maybe you can research into some of those projects. I know it's happening in Boston. Arizona's a big one with it. California's a big one with it. And see what they're doing. And something that makes sense, how they got it from, from inception to wherever it actually worked somewhere along the way. Maybe that's something you could find that information and then say where planning came into effect and worked. It's something that we could look at.
Should that be better?
Love you, man.
I feel the pain.
Good.
Awesome. So maybe you'll hear more from us.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Well, look, quick suggestion, I
Every
think,
day it's like,
mixed
who's
use,
driving today?
we had new projects, kind of recently, mixed use. And it seemed to me as the mixed use model, they're just trying to pack in more residential. They don't really have a plan for the commercial space. It just seems to be, I want to do the reservation space and the commercial spaces, the way I get my density.
You said.
Okay. Maybe through that regulation, we could say, find some
Your
incentive
employees.
that commercial spaces be childcare. That might be a more tangible way.
And I think that that's kind of to your point, right? Yeah.
All in the mixed use, if you look at it, it includes industrial and everything else, not just a commercial use.
Right.
You can actually put a contracted storage out in and call it a mixed use thing and get residential. I mean, that's something that probably should be changed in the regulations.
Yeah,
The definition box, there'd be a definition of zoning you'd have to change.
I think that's an excellent point. And I guess practically, planning board, if one thing that comes from us is you all thinking about it, and in the conversations that you have with applicants, whether you have teeth behind it or can require it, those applicants that are looking for residential density and don't really have any grand ideas for the commercial, planting that seed, having that conversation, hey, big need in town is childcare, and those types of conversations, which aren't any kind of requirement, but give them some insight, which obviously the group that Don and Jesse are working with will be making those same efforts with people that bring commercial to Barrington. But it's good feedback.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Oh, the rec department's awesome, by the way.
Amen.
I said the rec department's awesome, by the way.
We do what we can.
Next item is item C, Bending subdivision now, though. Review and address the change in rating.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to address the board. Staff just wanted to come in and accept the circular department. There was discussion, a site walk with town staff, out at the site about these, as they don't see it in the packet. It's the same that the applicant is providing, showing like grading, changes that were not included in the original plan set that was, additionally approved. In terms of staff's point of view, it's not affecting the lots. Affecting drainage or anything like that, I can move on to the applicant to discuss. So they're basically here tonight because there were several discussions going on about it, and if they need to amend their notice of decision, they'd have to come back. I don't, looking at it from the staff level, I don't think it's necessary for that the planning board to make it. So that's why they are here tonight. Discussion.
So it looks like the one on the left side, that is gonna improve the slope for the trail. By adding that, make it less severe.
Somewhat, yeah.
Somewhat.
So Sarko, Field Associates, and this is Joe Carlson, the developer. A quick update for the board. As everybody knows, this is the Bending subdivision recently approved by yourself. And we are currently very close to getting all state permits. So in the natural course of the development, Joe has actually had some contractors look out and start doing their due diligence as to how to balance the site and correctly construct the site. Now, throughout the whole planning process, I illustrated to the board, and you can understand that this is left as an existing gravel pit. Meaning, there's piles and rock piles and slope piles and steep slopes and everything everywhere, because that's how it was used and that's how it remains. So we definitely spoke on a number of times that Joe had offered, even in the areas where there is not lot development, the areas that were previously disturbed would be reclaimed because they're not left in a very good condition, which would require regrading, then loaming and seeding. Throughout the process with contractors, we came up with these areas. It was recommended that we do a sidewalk. Vanessa was there, Josh was there, the engineer, and Connor.
to review these areas that came up that has nice material on site that would reduce the amount of trucking on site materials. Two highlighted areas, mostly in yellow, are the areas that we looked at. The first on the left is, if everyone recalls where we parked, that's actually the existing gravel road leading into the gravel pit. So naturally, that's actually already nice compacted, high-grade gravel. It would make sense to use that. So the intent would be, as Chairman said, would be to change that grade, take some of that material, basically flop it, mirror image it 180 degrees, and use that for the road. There was a comment that someone had made and said, well, you didn't show that on the plan. Well, it's kind of hard to show every single grade that's going to happen on a reclaimed gravel pit because the overall site assessment is large. It's a large footprint. The second item was in the rear. Again, sand and gravel piles, and then an excavated area with steep slopes. There's actually some extra material there. Again, the contractor said, well, can we use some of that material before we regrade it, loam it, and seed it to stabilize it? And again, the comment was made, well, you didn't really show that on the plan. My opinion, we kind of thought it was all integrated in the approval, but we are here, Joe was graciously enough to come and update the board. You know, we're not trying to hide anything. His intentions are to use what available material is on site, develop it the correct way, and then finalize it, because really at the end of the day, the areas that we're talking about is actually gonna be owned by the town. So politely saying, we actually can't really afford delays in going back for a new application. There is a possibility if you know, if it's an issue, it's in the open space. If you prefer, we can leave it as is, which doesn't make sense to me. But at the end of the day, I said, you know, it's gonna be owned by the town. It makes sense to me to reclaim it and make it look nice the way that it was intended. And then the third item is, again, because it's an existing gravel pit, the old historic loam on all the areas that were excavated are said piled, you know, in these areas here, which we had walked on site. And Joe still would like to reserve the ability to take that loam and use that for the stabilization of the site on the lots and the sides of the road and whatnot. So that's the basis on why we're here this evening. Joe actually went upon himself and took some nice photos. If there's a specific area that we want to see, I think majority of you actually were on one of the 3 sidewalks that we had. So that's it. We'll leave it up to the board and answer anything.
I would just like to add, the only change that could happen to my existing permit, that the grades aren't shown, is on this existing road that's there today. Someone came in and said that people go down and fish in the brook. Now, the brook, if they catch fish in that brook along this property, I think it's a miracle, because there's only 6 inches to 12 inches of water. There may be more further down. But I said, fine, I agreed that we would leave the 6 or 7 or 8 gravel parking spaces before the gate, where people can come in and park and go down. There were 2 sidewalks. I've always stated, and I'm going to use all the existing piles of loam that are there, rocks. And when you run a gravel operation, I happen to own a gravel company in my 20s. You try to return from the site if they pay you to take their then junk off the site to the pit, and then you either crush it, you reuse it, you sell it. Well, we all looked at the piles that exist, even on the lots, not in the open space. I'm using all that. I don't need permission to use that. I do need permission to show you why I wanna flip the gravel and use it, because it's 150 less truckloads coming in and going out on the site. So I only made 7 packets, and I'd like to keep one in case you have questions. And you can look at this. Then I'll show you the loom piles, the existing piles on the site. And what this shows is the existing pad.
All right.
One more thing.
Either way, yeah, whatever works.
That's the existing trail or roadway that goes into the site now on the front page. And that's where we want to take the gravel and flip it on the road. But if you go to the next 2 pages, I show you the condition of the slope that is there today. The slope that will be left will be either one, grass, seeded, and stabilized. And if you go to the next page, that's the slope which is there right now, where they've left some piles of rocks and the sand and gravel. That would be seeded and slope. They would be.
Joe's referring to back here, sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
So that's the area that, we plan on reclaiming, that was an area that came to attention.
So, and the path won't be as wide as a vehicle because vehicles aren't allowed after we put the new road in to travel down there because it doesn't go anywhere other than to house lots. So yes, we didn't show the grading on that plan, but I'm required to do an as-built plan at the end, and that will be reflected on the as-built. If you don't want me to touch that road and leave it, I'll leave it the way it is. Because I'm not gonna come back and amend my permit to do that. And this is the only other one, because we didn't show a grade change on it. It's in the open space. And I'll explain those 3 pages to you. Sorry.
Sorry.
That was in a nice thing.
This is just the way it was left, that when they screened, they left the rocks and tailings on the side.
Yeah, we get.
You got enough? So that's out back, and when you see all those rocks on the top of that small 8-foot grade, 7-foot grade. They stripped that, they screened material, they left the rocks. I bought it, it's there, I want to use it. And if you go to the second page, behind those rocks and tailings, you'll see that they stripped the loam off and left it there.
Yeah.
So this small quantity, there's probably only a couple thousand yards, if there's that. When I take that out, and the ground is leveled. How much? About 800 yards. When I take that out, I push the loom back on.
Out here.
We loom it and we seed it. Those are really 2 areas that we didn't actually show. And you can see another photograph on page 3 of a similar small spot where they did the same thing. There's a steep bank. They left material on top of it and they left the loom behind it.
Coming down, but easy.
The rest I have is informational purposes, like there's 10,000 yards of loom on the site, plus or minus. But of course, the grandfather started the pit. They've been piling this loom up for years, so it's probably now 10 and 15 foot trees. And these aren't in the open space, these are actually, most of these are right on the lands. Back in here.
What's the yard of loom go from now?
Well, this here is, as you can see, hasn't been screened.
No.
But screen loom is around 25. But we're using it on site.
$4.29 a gallon for diesel.
Right, the trucking cost is really the big savings, but it makes sense.
Yeah, anytime we save trucks from going down the budding roads, it's beneficial to everyone. So, again, we considered it kind of an all-inclusive thing. We just want to make sure that the board is okay and there's nothing from myself.
If that's fit on the trying to balance the cuts and fills and
Right.
use the material on the side, so.
Correct.
No issues here.
No.
Have a motion you want?
He's the builder, so
Oh,
I'm
okay.
make sure that he's not left in the dark. I think you guys should have a consensus that the removal of those piles and to be used as part of the subdivision was part of your original approval.
Right.
Just to make it clean going forward, that's a decision you made tonight. It doesn't necessarily have to be a motion and a second, but you need to have a concurrence.
We all
I mean-
concur?
I would definitely concur. That was exactly what we talked about on the sidewalk.
I see exactly what we talked about. I think it's within the
Spirit of it.
approval design. Is to-
Well, yeah, it's improved because some of the stuff you want, we thought.
So that concurrence will verify that that plan is, you're good with it.
Appreciate it.
This isn't gonna,
Be transparent.
of the spot it out or anything.
They basically concurred that that was their decision originally, so.
Yeah.
Within the original, the original school.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
Thanks.
Joe, do you want the rest?
No, I'm done. Plus, we can keep copies in the file and get some.
Yeah, that. You give it away, you don't have to. Make them one.
Oh, you keep this one. I got enough paper.
Anybody want to take a break or move right into subdivision?
Go right in.
Oh, I need a 5 minute.
Oh, you need a 5 minute?
You can keep going if you want to go without me. I'm not.
It's such a vital part.
No, I think you'll survive without me.
So,
Oh, should I say something?
yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna wake up here. Next on the agenda, we have CMA presenting the version of the subdivision regulations. Update, changes, corrections, improvement.
Improvements, I like that.
Okay.
Hopefully they're better when we're done, that's the intent.
No, I went through the whole thing. It's a lot of good stuff.
Thank you.
And get rid of a lot of duplicates,
Yeah, I really wanted to clean it up, make it more concise.
all the fun.
And overall just make them better, update them so that there's. The old references are no longer being included, some of the stuff in it just looks like. Years old, it isn't in use anymore, I can't find it online, so. So trying to make everything current. I don't know how you wanna do this.
Quickly.
So, for nine, that kind of number, there are many, not many, well, like, you update the grammar and clean up the text, make things more concise. I think we were just gonna take it in chunks of like where the major corrections started, the sections. And
It's all of that.
there's quite a bit on those pages, because I think our focus tonight is to get through this, so this can be adopted. Since we're having other things on, I want to make sure that we probably before they start moving the, review regulations. I know there's probably other things that have not been addressed. If there is, when you were going through this process that you would like to see change, make a list. And then we could revisit those after, unless they're like minor things you want to add to them, I guess, but for the sake of time and trying to get this adopted.
Seems okay.
And I will say, I focus most of our efforts on the design part of the regulation. If you read through the whole thing and try to clean up some language, and that's what you'll see most of our comments are in this one.
I had a page 4. We can go with that. A chairman of the board. More correct now, just to call it the chair. Or chairperson instead of
What's
generalizing. Page 4.
Are you talking page 84?
84?
Page 4.
Depends on what you got in your package.
Oh, okay, that's, part 2 application processes.
What's that number?
2.1.1.2.
Let me back up.
Yeah, I got it.
Those of you that weren't here, I don't know, Dave, we didn't have a quorum. Was there?
That was me.
You don't have to look at it. We just make a chair.
Haven't.
Yeah, no,
I did that on that day. When I talked to you now.
Yeah, we went over your comments. correct.
Okay, so you kept them.
I did keep one in for. I already said something.
Okay, that'd be cool.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
If you want to give me your comments
No,
afterwards.
you go for it. I
No.
think,
Yeah.
whatever, sure.
Yeah, I think I'm still going to track changes. Yeah, it's.
Um,
I'm afraid to talk.
I'm sorry.
These guys, what the hell's he talking about? How about this 2.5.2 and
Page
2.5.3 is done at the same time? Does it indicate that maybe they're done different times?
Page 5 in relation to 2.5.2.
2.5.3, I think it should be done at the same time. I think it suggests the need for clear.
But you wouldn't necessarily, you may not accept it, if the application is not necessarily complete.
It's ready to review if it's complete, and then if it's not complete.
Yeah.
You don't.
Okay.
It's on page 11, completed. The map was mine is not a regulation. I think that's one
Yeah.
you pointed out.
Where are you? What section are you in?
Page 11, and it, the new section you put 4.5.
Oh, you jumped out. Okay.
Master plan is not a very issue. No.
Yep, makes sense.
Page 12, new requirement. We can talk about that later, but the registry does not require Mylar anymore. Actually, they would rather have paper,
Okay,
so we can, however,
I don't mean to think they take miles.
no, that, well, they do.
Oh, they do?
They don't like it. They get mad at me every time I bring lunch. I think there's one, right, so that's it, until they do. It's like, why are you-
okay.
Okay. Page 13.
Look at.
Complete application contain one color and 5 copies. You said what other copies? I guess take the word others.
Okay.
Page 15, there's something, the leader. We were there, we changed that. Sorry.
Right,
5.3.2, 1.
so we'll enumerate.
5.3.2, parentheses 1. I think I'll have to adjust the number and do that too, but the proposed features. Shall be called out with a leader, descriptive text.
Yep.
That's just a challenge.
You mean using the word leader?
Yeah.
A leader is.
What is a leader?
A leader is on a design drawing, is when they draw the arrow point.
It's the little like
Yeah.
line that runs.
The line with the arrow on it, and then
It's
it's
a little more
no
than a quarter.
Or it's a little less than a
A
quarter.
little more in the court.
Idiot.
As a president to
I
have
don't
a
know what
line,
else to call it.
follow the leader.
It's Joe Biden, right? Oh, is we recording? this?
There you go. He's on- Right.
So page 16, there was a question on 5.3.2, put these 10 on the road and drainage standards. The standard specifications for construction in the town of Barrington. To reference Article 12 and 13.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering, is that an actual document specifications? So you're saying that should be changed to reference Article 12 instead? Yep.
Page 18, or do you have? Yeah, new section 5.3.2. J, I think the J.
Yeah.
I should say subdivision and not like. And then, there's also, I said, there's no changes shall be made to the site plan without express approval of the Barrington Planning Director. The planning board makes all of documents,
Okay.
so that.
Did you say the planning board?
It's like, who's the planning director? You're the planner, not the planning director.
You said town planner equals town director.
Yeah.
No,
No,
no. Town planner, planning director, I'd do that, but I wouldn't say town director.
I wouldn't even say planning director.
I would.
It's not that there is no such title.
You can be whatever you want.
She's got
America.
Got the corner on.
Are
Yes.
they open far enough so you can throw someone out?
So, God,
See, it's kind of front door, she can open the windows.
yeah. If anybody has any corrections, speak out.
I know
He shuts her door
I know the general.
and then makes Barbara deal
Where
with me.
things are new and duplicates. I don't like necessarily taking those out, but rather than taking it out, totally just reference the other section that's in. So if it seems to make places, it tends to be in two places, rather than delete it in one place because somewhere else, just say as referenced in the other place.
Yep.
So rather than just delete it altogether, just refer it back to the other section.
Yeah, and I mean,
I mentioned that before, yeah, so I just wanted. Well, and that's my opinion, the rest of the board, I think, weigh in on that, but I think it's.
That's a great opinion. I like that opinion.
Yeah, good. I gave
Just,
it.
just wanted to support you.
I feel gratified.
We take a vote and support it.
It's a woman.
I don't want to be public support. I'm not
Don't
gonna
want
do
to
that.
record.
They all support you.
Hey. In the casino.
Yeah, that was my official quota of they for the day. Got it out there.
30?
Yeah.
Oh, the people speaking to John.
Thirty.
I don't have any reference.
I'm gonna have to look at Bravo.
Traffic impact.
I don't want to. I want to force. It's not much fury this one. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's make something reasonably simple.
Well, when you're dealing with words, unfortunately it happens.
5.31B.
Type of development department, yeah.
7.53, what'd you say?
One would be. Page 30.
Bingo.
So all that stuff would be something that's in the site review regulations. It's not a subdivision regulation. Subdivision is divided land.
Mhm.
It doesn't have all these other use things that.
Okay.
Overnight accommodations, development, and all the other stuff. That's.
Yep.
Something that's in,
Oh, that's right.
it's not something that's a part of subdivision. So,
Gotcha. Just hit the whole section right up.
you know, it's probably something like that to go into subdivision.
Yeah.
You know, I had asked, and then if you're looking into the, seasonal questions in the traffic analysis. So now that has come up on the recent project that we have, you have not seen this yet, but,
Young Road.
yeah.
Yeah,
About doing, traffic analysis, if we require it, like in certain seasons or,
Traffic code to the.
I don't know if you said like the highway capacity manuals, what I have another one, but
Yeah.
We're gonna see if you-
Adjustment for seasonal adjustment is part of the manual.
Yeah.
They were linking that instead of allowing them to adjust it to the manual. Have it to where they're doing it during the season. I'm not sure how
like, how-
legal that would be,
yeah.
even. That's something you might want to bring by the town attorney.
You said-
Well, the seasonal
like,
adjustment didn't really adjust much for like,
No.
in that condition, the number of cars that are, towing boats and whatnot.
during-
Yeah, it wasn't really a practical number, where it could be if it was something where, they say because of snow, the number is decreased or whatnot, but, does the state have that kind of wording? With
It
it?
actually is not the state, it's what you call, that,
Yeah.
that is the design thing for road use. It's not a state document per se, it's a federal thing, I think.
Yeah, it's the-
That's-
And it's described seasonal adjustments in there.
But right, I've seen that, but like I say, it only gives like little percentages, which is not applicable for, like I say, like the Young Road challenges for traffic, yeah.
Yeah, I think with this being a residential subdivision, I don't think seasonal variations apply. It
Well-
goes like.
Seasonal variation, but they didn't.
Oh, the applicant was?
Yeah,
Oh.
but the board didn't feel that using that variation, even though it was in ASHTO, was appropriate because the summer in July and August, the traffic going down to the lake is much higher than doing something in March and saying, we'll give you an adjustment of 10% or 20%.
Right.
It wouldn't be legit to what traffic really is in the summer in July and August.
even that, yeah.
A lot of boat traffic.
Yeah.
Also, we have a campground.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's, the traffic on that road, the normal adjustments for seasonal probably are not appropriate for those particular situations.
I was gonna say, it's already starting to swell because people are starting to come up for the campground, and I've noticed a difference in the last 2 weeks, actually.
Yep.
So the question was, if we see a situation like that, where we don't think the normal adjustments apply, what are our options?
Yes.
It's kind of what we're looking for.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you make the applicant go use a worst case scenario.
Well, worst case, in this case, we would think if they take it in the off hours with the adjustment, we don't think that's actually appropriate. So it's not like a worst case.
Right.
It's not even.
It's not even a regular case.
Regular case, so. In that fact, that was a public comment, the traffic analysis really is not appropriate for this situation, in this location. And I think we kind of agree, but, if they use the normal guidance document, if factors in seasonal, the applicant says, oh, no, we adjusted it. And then the public comment is, no, you didn't.
So do they adjust it down or do they adjust it up?
They adjusted it up for seasonal, but.
But it's not a minimal amount.
The actual adjustments. They don't know what actual is because they're not.
They didn't make it during.
Well, no, they did have a measured number. It was like in February.
Right, it was during a snow period event.
Right. They said actually, I think there was 2 days of school that was,
Yeah.
there's no
Don't
school.
try to get up to speed what you guys have already seen.
So the question is,
So it's hard to speak, but
we're
like,
trying to find out just a way we can, address that kind of situation. Right now, the regulations don't seem to support, making them redo their traffic analysis during peak hours and that, or make a bigger adjustment. And if it's appropriate, we kind of want that flexibility.
Yep.
Like, I would want to see a traffic analysis, in the next few weeks, probably month or so, because now you're starting to get into what is more prime time and what we
Yeah.
see on a more regular basis for June, July, August, September, right up to mid-October, and then it drops back a bit once school starts back up.
The lake drops the first weekend.
And yeah, October is when
the campgrounds winding up too.
So what might be legal is to tell them, we're not gonna hear your request for a subdivision until 6 months from now, when you do a traffic study when we want it. I'm not sure you can put that in your regulations and make that legal. That's where the issue comes out.
But
Well, there's gotta be some sort of wording we can do for like extenuating
saying that,
circumstances.
John, maybe we are saying that, but as an alternative, can we say the normal, percentage increase that you use to the guidance, we want to use more than that. We want to have the ability to say, we don't think that the 10% added for seasonal is appropriate in this situation. So we just want the ability to, opine on that.
And I have a general comment on that, is if you're doing a subdivision or any type of major building project like that, where you require DOT traffic analysis, your project is at least 3 months long before you get into it. So you can time a lot of that a little more appropriately. I mean, from my own experience, any project that I've done that's a bigger project like this, where I have to have a DOT analysis for traffic, I've known it's been coming for months, because you start, even from your initial concept to when you purchase a piece of land, and then you say, okay, we're going to go develop on this. You start with your contractuals for your existing conditions and all of your engineering work. It's not a short process. It's usually a minimum of 3+ months
That's
to
true,
do
but
all
I
that.
think
So they buy it in January. And
Yeah.
then you're telling them, wait till July before you do your traffic analysis. That's the point I guess I'm trying to make. Do you have the legal right to do that and hold someone up on their application? That, I'm not an attorney, I'm not an attorney, but I
I'm-
don't think so either. That's-
But I'm just saying, like, you haven't even put a shovel in the ground at this point. It's gonna take you 3 months just to get all of your civil documentation together. You haven't broken ground on anything.
Yeah,
But
but
now you're telling them to wait 9 months to put all your paperwork together before you break ground.
well,
I agree with
I
that.
think too, you gotta remember that the traffic analysis for us is only required at 20+. So they do their yield plan. Now they find they can do more than 20. that's when we can do a traffic analysis. So under 20, we probably could require a traffic analysis unless there's some mitigating factors. So I think John's right that, you know, you can find you need a traffic analysis fairly quickly. You do the yield plan. You don't know if you what you do the yield plan. You do the yield plan, you're already trucking, get the engineering going. If you see more than 20, now you gotta do the traffic analysis. You gotta, you know, contract that right away. So I think it's shorter term than you're thinking. I think.
I don't know.
Maybe, but I'm telling you, you
When
don't.
did that first arise? Wasn't that like last fall?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the start of the purchase on all that was way, way back before that.
Now, you're saying wait until July and do a traffic study now? I mean, that's what I'm saying. He started in November, and you're
Yeah.
saying wait till July to be traffic. Then after you bring that analysis in, then we'll start considering your case. That's exactly the point I'm trying to point out.
Right, so
I'm wondering when the,
And he went to the ZBA to
One-
get variance.
Right.
I'm wondering from the approval date,
I don't want to be talked over. I want to raise my hand.
acceptance of the application.
Go, buddy.
All right. So what John is saying, I get, if we back up and say, what is the purpose of the traffic analysis? Who needs that information and for what purpose? Because if the Young Road is a perfect example. We don't have to make them wait. We can say it's a known entity. That even though if they go in and say, well, we're gonna do a traffic analysis in February, well, that's all well and good, but we know that that's a known entity, that's gonna change between, you know, Memorial Day and Labor Day. And so who needs that information and for what purpose? Because if we're doing a traffic analysis just to check a box, then we're not doing anyone anything.
So there's a couple of ways to go on traffic. Part of it is you're looking at site distance and everything else when you do your curb cuts and all that thing to make sure they meet all of our regulations, which they could do without a numbers count. The numbers count really comes down to delay at intersections and how the stuff backs up and kicks it back. So a 20 lot subdivision, when you get to the stop sign at the end of Young Road, it's gonna be, you're gonna have a 15 or 20 second delay between cuts. Is usually what it comes out and shows. But all the other pertinent stuff, site distances on driveways, your elevations, all that is done anyways through engineering, not through a traffic.
Right.
Right, so if we
So all that shows, like counting the cars just shows delays. That's all that shows.
so then it's almost a moot point then at that point. If we know that they're coming in, it doesn't matter what it is. We leave it as it
You
is.
also need a traffic count too, because once you reach a certain threshold, now you're looking at turning lanes. You may need to turn in lane, you know, like the Christmas out over there. You know, they may need a right-hand turn lane to turn into it because it's too much traffic on Route 9 itself.
But if it's being engineered for safety reasons, that's why driveway cuts and everything is gonna, curb cuts are all gonna do that. Wouldn't we want to bring that to someone's attention that if they're dealing on, like, you know, on my road on Deer Ridge, when they were building the new development, there was a lot of trucks that were going through there, you know, 50, 60 miles an hour, but now that that's done, there's no one that goes through there more like, say, 20 miles an hour. But we don't have seasonal, that was just a short term while the project was going on. If Young Road has seasonal, you know, what can we do that helps them, or what do we not do that helps them? If they come in and say, we've done our traffic count to do whatever it is, and then we say, there's more to it than just, you know, 20 cars an hour going through here. This has a seasonal point. Do we just say, just so you're aware of this, for safety reasons, we would want you to look at this and do it at a higher level?
So I think probably what you could do is, I hate to say the town would spend more money, but the town could actually hire someone like Josh's company to take a look at what do we have for traffic, let's say in February, what do we have in June, what do we have in July, what do we have in August? And then you could do a percentage increase, you could have in regulations, depending on when you do it, you gotta use this kind of an increase. Then you would have a scientific method that proves the point of what you're trying to do. Cause you can't really throw out a hypothetical, well, you're gonna have 20% more, maybe not, you know?
You don't, but
They can do and get that.
They go into it, not hard to think of that.
I think seasonal is a different word, though. If it's seasonal because there's snow, that's one thing. If it's seasonal because there's excessive traffic because of the lake and the campground, that's a different use of the word seasonal.
but good amounts of that are all available because the Lake Association does counts for when they're there. So you can get you could actually get an averaged out count over what they're seeing based on them counting, plus the campground knows has a count as well of roughly how many vehicles are in and out of there. You know, if you've got 180 sites or 200, use 200 because it's a good round number, 2 cars per site on a weekend, plus, you know, an average of 10% of guests. So another 20 cars, you got 400 and roughly 40 cars that are rolling in and out of the campground in the course of a weekend, typically between Friday and Sunday. And then the boat launch through, if you looked at their counts and they're saying, okay, on a standard day, we see 20 people, 20 additional people here throughout the course of the day, or 50 throughout the course of the day, plus the seasonal homes around the lake. Now you start factoring all of those into it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, get that formula put together. And
Yeah.
in your regulations, you could say, we need an increase of this time, because of this time of year, then that's clearly a scientific thing in your regulation, not this arbitrary thing where you gotta do your.
Yeah,
traffic
10%
study
or whatever it is, yeah,
from July.
yeah.
Because I think that's where the thing comes in. I think if you put something in your regulation that says, a percentage, a 15% increase you need from this time of year to this time of year, something like that, but it would be based on those traffic counts and go in your regulation.
Right.
And it increase month by month.
Well, you could.
You can do it
Have
month by month.
them do each month, and then you can see when they do it and say, you need a
Yeah.
10% increase or a 20% increase based on that. And I think that your regulations would be totally legal. To tell someone they gotta wait until high traffic time before you can do your
Yeah.
traffic counts, and they see something you wouldn't be able to do legal.
But I think if we're, I'm sorry, we're an advisory board though, so if the people come in, they have their project. Well, as this, we're gonna tell them what we think, right?
No, we're
No.
creating the regulation.
So,
It's not
you've
advisory,
got
it's
two
rule.
roles. You've got a legislative role where you create legislation. And then you've got a judicial role where you're acting as the jury. You're weighing the evidence of what they're bringing in and what our regulations say. If they conform to the regulations, you say, okay. If they don't conform, you tell them, no, it doesn't conform. So you're not advising them. You're actually giving them permission on saying, no, you don't make it.
So who's gonna tell them that, Young Road has this happen?
So as your judicial role, you can put something in your regulation with those kind of number things to how you're gonna make those seasonal adjustments. Which you can do in your legislative role, because that's what you're doing today by doing these regulations. You're performing your legislative role.
If we were gonna do that, I would wanna look at what are the other impact areas where there is seasonal
Yeah. not just-
flow. I wouldn't wanna just do one area.
You would have to, yeah.
Before we do that, I guess Buddy and John said something that resonated with me, maybe back up a little bit, which is, at the end of the day, does it change anything?
That's what I'm
But-
thinking too.
You know, in 15 seconds into the section. All right, maybe it's 17 seconds. What is, in tangible terms, what results from that?
For a lot of our small roads in town, it probably makes very minimal change. Where you have a high traffic road, it could make a big change, because it's like Josh said, you might have to do a left turn lane and something like that, because like 125, Route 9, but
Well,
those
those
got way more traffic than what a lot of our town roads do. Although if you start looking at, like Green Hill Road, since Toll Lane Road got fixed, there's a lot more traffic going down through there, because people are going across the 202 to go towards Concord, where before they weren't taking those town roads. So those roads see a lot more traffic than.
But is there any, John, you're probably the most knowledgeable, but is there any changing at 15, 20%, 30%? Is it gonna drive a different result?
Yes, it can.
In what way?
Because if all of a sudden now they have to go put a slip lane in at the end of the road, but if they reduce their lot size by 3 lots and it removes that, like that impact time or distance, then
I'm hard seeing that reduction of 3 lots is gonna change the requirement. You know what I mean? The high traffic roads have a lot of traffic. Our feeder roads onto the high traffic roads.
It's like this 50-lot subdivision here.
Mhm.
They had to put that left turn lane in because of not only the businesses, but of the total traffic count increase. So that was a huge increase. On a road that doesn't have, like this, I don't care what time of day you come up through here, this traffic up and down this road
Yep.
constantly. You go on Young Road, Beauty Hill Road, there's times when you got a lot of traffic, like in the morning when people are going to work and stuff. But in the middle part of the day, there's almost no traffic on the roads. But here, you still got super amount of traffic when people are trying to pull in and out. That's the reason why that kicks into those left turn lanes, or decel lanes, or whatever you want to call them.
But the impact will be on the Route 9 and ultimately down on 125, because these roads, all of this development being crammed in there creates all this impact on those two roads. I know of 4 cars this year that have been hit trying to turn onto Young Road on Route 9. One of which was my neighbor. So it's happening already. And I witnessed one out here on 125 like a month
The state
ago.
actually has requirements that if there's something going on that creates that within a certain distance, then you have to, they look at that for that curb cut too. That's why Vanessa's meeting with them on the Winkley Pond Road, because of that development being right close by that intersection. Turbo Camp had to do that upgrade on Route 9 because even though you're off on a town road, you were so close to that, they wanted input on that. Even the new building, I got a call. And it was like, what do you mean? They're not even coming off a state road. And they go, yeah, but it's so close, we still want it. So then they ended up looking at that one.
Yeah.
Technically, after I issued the permit, because planning board approved it, and we didn't considering that being a state road, because you're off the town road when it went in.
Right. But that's what I look at is that all of that development impacts how you move on and off of those roads.
Yeah, but something like Young Road, the development isn't the driving force, no pun intended, behind the increase in traffic. It's
a
the-
cumulative effect.
It adds into it, but that's probably that small percentage that we're talking about there, but that seasonality of it, of having the campground and having the lake there, that's there whether you put a subdivision in or not, that the traffic's gonna rise and traffic's gonna fall.
Right, and the state eventually will look at that and say, hey, you need the town needs a turn lane here off of this, or there's an impact.
That's really what matters.
Right,
Yeah, but
You're doing the traffic analysis, figure out where you determine and if you need a, on the town roads, the state, the state has environments on the state roads, so.
yeah, but I think Buddy's comment, I think is directly affects us, which is the campground and the boat launch adds way more than the 20 lot,
It does, but if you get a 50 lot subdivision.
I mean, it's not the driver. It doesn't, hate to use your pun, but
Right.
it's not the driver.
I don't think his hearing aid was turned up, Josh, you have to speak up.
Wouldn't if you get a 50 lot subdivision, 20 lot, no, it doesn't have, it's 200 vehicles a day. But if you get a 50 lot on a road, that's 500 vehicles a day.
I just think that this area we're talking about, Young Road, is an exception to the rule. I think if the rule exists where we're adding percentages based on the number of potential traffic it's adding, I think that probably 90%, 95% of the time it's gonna be sufficient, but with this, and I don't know if it's just because I'm sensitive to it now, I hear a lot of people complaining about the speed limit, that the speed limit on Young Road needs to be dropped and all this other stuff that people need to have more.
It's gotta be dropped, the speed needs to be enforced.
Right.
Two different issues.
Well, that was the second half I was gonna say. The other people are saying that we need to have more police out there that are, giving speeding tickets, and then the parking challenge where people say, this is parked here, I can't see because it's a boat trailer or whatever. There's a lot that goes into it that 5%, not the 95%.
I mean, Josh usually wears.
They showed like half of the traffic coming from Route 4 and half of it coming from Route 9, so it's dispersed through. It wasn't congregated all on one section of road, because when they did their whole traffic thing, I remember seeing that.
And I mean, Josh usually wears bright colors, so it's hard to say I didn't see him if I run him over on Young.
Don't
forget
the peach farm.
Oh, yeah, with a peak farm with all the events that are gonna be in there. It's gonna be-
That event would make more traffic than that sub.
Yeah.
On that short-term impact. that's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do like a peak hour analysis.
Wait.
I mean, good thing is most of us aren't on the road about 10:30 or so at night when all of that comes flooding out.
Oh, yeah, I'm usually hammered at that.
Yeah. You'll be able to get car parts galore up and down Young Road.
Subdivision section, starting on page 44.
Yeah, I need a lot of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
See that?
all kinds of.
There's a comment about, conservation subdivisions, but yeah, but, developments proposed roadway, not separate standalone lots. Access to the different roads, so like what we saw tonight and what we've experienced
Yeah.
previously, so I think that addresses. Those concerns that we've talked about, unless anybody else will be.
I had a quick one, it came up recently, I have one. I understand for cluster groups, when you're doing individual lots, it does say that it references, cluster development.
Mhm.
And I guess I'm having trouble understanding. You're doing individual lots. Why they're encouraging cluster design when individual lots are kind of individual lots, I mean.
Because the whole point of a conservation subdivision is to get everything close and make as much connected conservative land that flows into an animal corridor as possible.
Yeah, but you can do individual lots if not required. So why am I encouraging cluster design if individual lots are allowed? Why am I putting a clause in and say cluster design is something you should be considering?
I don't think we've actually, like, if you look at the guideline on it, it gives you like here ideals as opposed to saying a conservation subdivision shall be built in this nature.
Has anybody ever chosen a cluster development?
Oh,
They pick what it,
Yeah, cluster's often done.
well, I don't know.
Recently.
They
Well,
pick
that-
what's
if you go back to
easiest.
Young Road, they were originally talking about doing it as cluster. They were identifying it. That's all they had.
Well, that was for their yield plan.
Yeah.
They pick what is easiest for them to execute on
Easiest and cheapest.
and
Yeah.
cheapest, yes. Cheapest is key, yeah. Cheap is key.
And clusters are cheaper because they're building a lot less infrastructure.
Right.
But I don't think you here, but that meeting of the Conservation Commission, they had like a 3-4 page document, and half of it was they don't follow the cluster design requirements, which is they don't have to.
They got a variance.
Well, for the 2 individual lots,
Well, even for the 50, the 100-foot buffer all in the front and not having that impact and stuff.
but they have all the lots in the front, which, if you think about it, makes sense in that particular situation, away from the sensitive stuff in the back.
Mhm.
And they were making a big deal, it's not
The
clustered in.
ZBA had good justification for what they did. If you look at protection of all the sensitive areas and the whole bit, it was, if they would have done a conventional subdivision, the impact and the negativity there would have been great. By allowing them to cluster them and keep them all up front, the impact to the sensitive areas is almost none. Almost all of it is completely protected. And that's why the ZBA gave that relief, because it made total sense. And the lot had a hardship because they had a long frontage and it wasn't deep, like typical lots that get subdivided when you put a subdivision road.
But if you, is it really a hardship though? That's what I always struggle with is.
It's a hardship.
Right, like you get into this and, it's, we talk about like, oh, it would create all this impact. The reality of it is, you often wouldn't build it if it creates that big of a heart
A
of an
developer had the
impact.
right to develop and make
You're-
money if he meets the town's regulations, so he would have built that.
I agree a developer has a right to do it, but if suddenly you're spending an exorbitant amount of infrastructure to put it in there, and when you looked at the backlots, we got into a whole conversation about the slopes in there and the likelihood, and
Finish that.
yeah, and I'm not trying to use that as a specific case. You look, like you could use the one on Orchard Hill from years ago that we looked at where it was like a 4-lot right in the front and the road coming into it had a wonky angle and everything needed to be contoured and changed. And I still don't know if it's been fully completed at this point because
That was
they-
different. That was a town road. The town was trying to fix its road by the way. But I think they had to get back on regulations. So.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is the point of what that conversation is. When you look at it, the whole point of clustering it should actually be beneficial for both parties, as opposed to saying, oh, well, you can go do this. Well, yeah, you can do anything, but if you're willing to spend enough money. And the reality is, most people aren't going to do that because it doesn't, it would be a loss to go do it. Like,
A loss
I
to the
have,
cluster.
it's a loss to build out like a regular, like subdivision.
That real one, we shouldn't talk about that specific.
We're talking about that.
Because they're not here in front of us with it.
Right.
Development that shall not use its name.
Yeah.
Or design. Where are you?
Trying to think of some of the others we've dealt with. Well,
59.
That's the one about the conservation subdivision.
Oh, no. Did you?
We'll pass that.
Oh.
Oops. It's like you look at the town. It's on my mind. That was another town. And there was a village.
So 12.1
They never even get approved to build on.
Yeah.
So you look,
Zoning board gives reasons like that.
I thought it was only one.
Sometimes, yeah, depends.
Well, the 11.
Maybe I can go.
So 11.51, you didn't make any changes, but it said all required fire protection standards shall be operational for any building permit. State statute 670-12B states that if infrastructure or a road is bonded, I have no right to deny a building permit. It's one of the state law. So that's completely contrary to what state law is.
Okay.
So that really should come out. Because, yeah, and then there's another section that was, I think you changed.
You want to take out all of?
Well, no, the bit about all required fire protection standards shall be operational prior to issuance of a building permit. If they bond for that, what you could do there is all required fire protection standards shall be operational or bonded before an issuance of a building permit. Because if it's bonded, then I have to give them the permit. If they bond their infrastructure, that the RSA says I have no right to deny the permit. Because it goes on to say that I can't give them the CO until all of the stuff's in place. But if it's all bonded, I have to give them a building permit.
Even if they don't have fire protection in place?
It says, I'll read what it says. So what it says is, no building permit shall be denied on the grounds of uncompleted streets or utilities when the construction of such streets or utility has been secured to the municipality by a bond or other security approved by the planning board. So that's an infrastructure for it, and that's regulated in state law. So if they come in and say, I want a building permit, I got regulation says I can't give it to them, but the state says I got no right to deny it. That's considered.
But then if you read further down, though, it says, however, that on language is part of the subdivision plat or site plan. No building should be used or occupied prior to.
But I can't give them a PO until it's done, but I gotta give them the building permit to get started.
Oh, you can issue the building permit.
I have to issue the.
You have to build.
But I can't give them a CO until it's done. But this says I can't issue a building permit.
Oh, okay. You didn't read the second part, so I wasn't worried about the.
Yeah, that's the part about the CO. That's why I said I can't give them a CO until it's done, but
Okay,
I can't deny it.
we can just say the whole sentence right now. Because
It might be clear to come out, yeah, because that was part of the other one that, the one about not giving the building permit until the road is complete. That's the reason why I brought that one, therefore, because of the same regulation.
Because that's pretty typical.
Yeah, bond, yeah.
Yeah, you can't issue a occupancy permit until the roads are at least some level.
Right, and the planning board had, it was, I don't know if it was ever voted on, but it's always been done. You have to have the binder coat in as part of it, and then you could give COs, because they really wanted the wear coat to be done once the subdivision was done, so that it hold up in the future. So I haven't been given any COs until at least the bind is done, and all the other infrastructure, all the drainage stuff before it gets to go.
Yep. Because,
And you put it clear in the regulations for what that things are, in the regulations, so.
okay,
You give a standard to, this has to be, and it talks about steel, changing, one of the things I saw.
That's me.
Oh, that's a change you made. Yeah, there was a change that got put in, yeah.
yeah, that was, the stuff that Vanessa added.
Yeah.
Um,
It was probably because of
I
the
mean,
comments
some of
that
that,
are
yeah.
next.
And then Shannon should give me direction on maybe address those.
But-
Laura's supposed to review.
Yeah, and then one of the new ones here that I saw a thing, it said the planning board shall require the applicant to post a bond or satisfactory surety at the time of the application of a subdivision approval. So if you read, yeah, if you read 674, 36, what it says is, it says, So it says on the thing, it said, shall provide that in lieu of completion of street work and utilities and installations prior to the final approval of plat, the planning board shall accept the performance of it. And it says in lieu of doing the work first. So if they come in and say, I want to do my work, and I'm not asking for any building permits, I don't think you can make them bond it. I think you can make them put money up front for their third party inspection. But to bond the road being built and then give them back money as they build the road, if they're willing to do it before they bond it, and now, if they're taking a risk and if they want building permits and they have to bond it, once they bond it, then I gotta give them the building permits by that other section we just talked. So, and these are both state law. This is not. No,
So you're saying that they don't have to bond it if they don't want to,
if they're gonna.
if they're not gonna request building permits as they're building it.
So what happens is we actually had like meeting house come in. They paid for their third party inspection. They built like 3/4 of their road up before they wanted to get a building permit, and they bonded what was left, but they also made sure their maintenance bond was for the total amount because they had that 15% over and above the total amount. And well, when they wanted a building permit, they had to bond their information infrastructure, but if they would have bonded it and they did the work, they would have got their money back anyways. So they weren't, and that's what this said. You can't make, the town can't make them build it first. You shall accept the bond, but it doesn't say you can make them pay a bond and let them do instead of doing the work first. I think we still have a right to do the work first by the way this reads. Yeah.
But isn't part of that the town wanting some surety that the road's gonna be?
Well, they can't get a building permit, so if they do a subdivision and they haven't got the third party inspection, we can get the money for that up front. And if they don't complete the road or they bond the road, they can't get any building permits. If they get a road half built and they decide to walk away, they just got a half built road in the woods, it's on their private property. They haven't got any building permits, they haven't sold any lots, they haven't created any impact out there other than it's still being involved in. And I think that's why the state says in this thing here that, but it also goes on to say that the town cannot require them to do the work first, you shall accept the bond. And then once they do the bond, then I have to give them permit. So that's kind of their protection. And that, I think this law puts the town kind of on the short end of the stick. I agree, but it's still state law that does.
Yeah.
Well, that's why when I saw some of these issues here, that's why I said maybe I should stay to some of these, because I saw how they don't comply with state law. Yeah.
So what section is that in?
So the section you put in is 12.8 from the budget parentheses 2.
I can't remember, I don't know which version you're looking.
It's, well, I'm looking at the newest marked up one. It says the planning board shall require that the applicant post or satisfactory security at the time of the application of the subdivision approval. So
We can change.
that's a new section. Now, the other one.
Yes, I was trying to clear out the.
The one in the five?
No, the surety.
Oh, this one, sorry, this one, 12-1. This one. I'm using that one because I crossed off what you were beginning.
Wait, so it's 12-1 or 12-8?
Yeah, so it says prior to the issuance of a building permit, all subdivision roads must be constructed as or allowed emergency vehicles to enter. So if they bond that road, state law said, I gotta give them a permit. So to say that I can't issue a building permit is totally contrary. She crossed it out the very first part of it. But I got crossed over. And I understand that if you probably wanted that to make sure you get his emergency equipment in, but it's contrary to state law. So if it's contrary to state law, you can't do it. I didn't make it up.
I'm like, Rick won't care. He'll be retired soon enough. Right, then it just all becomes John and Rick's fault. We got what, like at least 6 months to bring them, right? I mean, there's a few people that blame you for everything anyway, so what would the difference be?
Oh, it's always the guy that left. It was his fault.
Yeah. What else we got?
Who's that?
So,
No.
Yeah.
So-
And we're done, all right, now.
We need to do that.
Update that.
No, I've got a contractor review tonight, so I still have homework beyond this.
They talked about, making sure they can bond it before doing the work first, and then it's 76. Well, there's a bit about it, that stuff bonded, I have to issue a permit.
What was the other one? 674.
36 subdivisions,
Okay,
that's what it's listed as a new bond, so.
okay, I'll take a look at both of those.
Now it's on 67, page 67, sorry, for 12.3.2.1, the width.
Yeah, so our driveway regulations, they're saying it shall be 10 to 18 feet for non-residential.
Or 10 to 20, and it should be 18,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what's in our. This,
So it changed 10 to 20 to 10 to 18.
yeah, because that 18 is, but I don't know if that's. so
Yeah, I
I'm
think
gonna adopt that
that,
part of the-
no, we talked about that, I just did a
Yeah.
typo.
Yeah.
It should have been 18.
I didn't take out curbing.
Well, that was from Josh.
I was trying to take it out.
Yeah, so that was a comment, Mark and I went over that, and it doesn't always make sense to have curving,
A lot of times it appears more than a house.
it does. I don't know why it's in there.
So 12.4.3, page 70. Private roads.
Which section you? 12 for,
Parentheses 3, the new one, we said for private
Yeah.
roads servicing 2 or 3 lots.
Technically, now, you're gonna go up to 3 lots, actually 4 lots off of a shared drive. Once you get 4, you gotta build it to the private road standards. If you have 3 under, you can still do it to a driveway standard as long as, I think we added something about a pullout every, was it 500 feet or something that got added in, but still built to a driveway standard, is not a private road standard.
okay,
So those two regulations conflict with each other.
12.4.3, 12.4.4.
Uh,
Because 12.4.4 said the private road servicing 4 or more lots. You need shall conform to the standards of Article 12.
And the other one says, for private roads servicing 2 or 3 lots.
The construction standards may be waived if planning board or Bolton Park provides such roads comply.
We also allow shared drives for 3 lots.
Up to 3.
Yeah, where it's built to a driveway standard. So probably that should be in there, because if you're allowing 3 to go up, where's the thing about the shared driveway? There's another section that's in subdivision, maybe we can look at the 2 of them together. Right, 12.3.1 parentheses 3, it says common driveways may be utilized, however, no more than 3 lots may share a common driveway, 3 lots. A service by the common driveway, such driveway on the street name approved by the town, it doesn't make them have to build it to a standard. We need to go to 12.3.1 parentheses 4, it says the common drive shall be 4 lots. The road shall be built to the town specification for a private road. 12.3.1 parentheses 3 talks about the common driveway. And then I have to read, just gotta have a name. So driveway, when you like 4 on a shared driveway, because if you got 2 front lots and 2 back lots, and they got 1 shared curb cut, then it gets built to the private road standards, but if it's only 3, it doesn't, according to the regulations.
Okay.
So that kind of conflicts with that, what was the 3 one that you just had? The one you had?
I lost it.
That one way back. What section we go with?
12.3.1, so on the other side of these pages.
Also, maybe it was.
That's what I said to compare it.
Yeah, that 12 points, yeah, that's what I was looking at, was the shared drive. The other one had the private.
Okay.
Here we go. So that's 12.4 parentheses 3. So that
Under
goes,
private road.
yeah, so if you go to the private roads, Four.
It's a new one.
Right here. So then it says private road, says, and it gives the construction to how it has to be, let's see, you have the thing here. With the 3 lots, you can do as a shared driveway, it doesn't have to be a road, it goes into one road.
Yeah.
See, and I think that said, was it 2 or 3?
Was that true?
Well, if you go to 12.43,
Oh, that's a new one.
Or three, yeah.
yeah, so that was the one that was proposed as the new one. Talks about if it's gonna be built to a private road standards, if there was 3 lots or something, but. I don't. So I don't have it on.
No, you have it, because that's.
Okay.
I see.
Because it says right here.
12.4, parentheses 5.
Well. But on this marked up one that Vanessa has, they had a change that said a private road servicing 2 or 3 lots shall be, the road construction standards may be waived by the planning board whole or in part, but it wouldn't be a private road. The only time you'd be doing that is a shared driveway. Because you wouldn't be approving a private road.
Well, it's allowing you to do driveway, but it doesn't require you to do driveway, you can do a road.
Yeah, I suppose if you did a road, it would be not on your own property, so it wouldn't be a shared drive, but our regulation also says that your access has to be from a class 5 or better road. So I suppose the shared road, the private, they proposed a private road off of a class 5 road, then this would apply, even if they own 3 houses out there, because they wouldn't have the ownership to the 2 lots going all the way out to the class 5 road, but I don't know why you would approve a private road for 3 or 4 lots when you got a shared driveway that already allows that with different regulations. I mean, why?
Well, I think
Wouldn't be a-
it's saying you can do a road instead of a driveway if you want. And if you're doing a road and it's 3 or less, we can waive it. If it's 3, if it's more than 3, we can't waive it. I think that's what it's saying to me, John.
That's the way I read it too.
Yeah,
So that doesn't conflict with the shared
I don't
driveway.
think it does.
No, I don't think it does.
No.
because a shared driveway is limited to 3 houses. Or 3 lots, sorry, 3 lots, yeah.
You can do 4, but if you put the 4th one in, you gotta build it to a road.
Now, yeah, now it's a.
So you can do a road with 3 or 2 or 3. You can do a road if you do 2 or 3. We can waive the requirements there. You can do a
So the
road.
road, so they wouldn't have ownership of the class 5, the road would be the private road going out.
Yeah.
And then you would do it to your private road standards to where.
Yeah.
What was it, 20 foot wide or something
Yeah.
like that, because which is a lot wider than the driveway.
Yeah.
If you go to the road.
Yeah,
standards.
so I don't think those conflict. I don't think, John. I really don't think it's like.
I know that your private road standards is much different than. And I think there's actually like a number of cars on it that's allowed according to that standard.
Yeah, there's a chapter that says,
I think it was.
right, here we go.
So if you do the minor access private road, it says 200 trips a day and a maximum of 4 houses.
Yeah.
But then it gives you a right of way at 30, yeah, so I suppose you could do a road that's 30 foot wide. 20 feet of pavement and allow 4 houses off of it, it wouldn't be a shared drive, but shared drives actually touch the class 5 of that road.
It could do less than 4, still be a private road. And we can waive the requirements necessary. In other words, it wasn't a shared drive, it was a private road, accessing 3 lots. It gives you the ability to waive it.
That way you can do a private road with a smaller right of way,
Yeah.
or a shared drive either. Okay, I get it. I just,
But it's saying that if you ask for waivers, then you're stuck with it. That you can't add a 4th lot in the future.
No, I think it says if you got a private road and there's less than 4, we have the ability to waive the requirement.
well, a lot of times when those happen, you can wait, because in the past, what you've done is you waive the pavement.
Yeah.
I think it says here, what's that pavement on this private road? Pavement when it says 20 feet, and a lot of the private roads, when they come in the past, you guys have waived it and allowed just gravel.
Yeah.
So like a 3 or 4 lot thing.
Yeah, so I don't think that conflicts. I think it gives you the ability to have a private road or a driveway,
Or shared drive coming back with
With
your
real
shit, yeah.
then it's in 2 places, and that's fine, I think. No one else cares.
No, I care.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Just wait for the motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second?
Well, page 74. I've never been any comments or questions, and that, right, I'm gonna try to get right sheet for that. Starts. I can send it right
74.
before it starts. Yeah, I think there was a comment, but I think you changed, it was a comment that maybe you and Mark had talked about, grubbing infrastructure only, not the entire width.
Oh, that was one I brought up.
Is that?
So instead of grab the entire width of the right of way, if you're only between your shoulders and the driveway in your ditch lines, if you're only taking out 30 feet of the road, why would you have to grab a whole 50 feet out?
Yeah, we changed that to,
So it's been changed.
no, it hasn't. I'm saying we can change it instead of clearing the right of way
Grab the right of way for where any infrastructure has to be built or something like that.
to your proposed project limits,
There you go.
something like that.
Yeah. If they grab out the whole 50 feet, they put the room back in, so you the vegetation kind of serves no purpose. Then all the trees along the side of the road is taken out and everything else. Why would you do that?
You're not supposed to be something out the erosion problem.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what it said, they grab the entire width of the right of way.
Well, if you have a 30-foot right of way, you're probably gonna be clearing the whole
No,
thing out.
but subdivision roads require 50-foot right of way. So which you'd have to grab out the whole 50-foot right of way, you're doing 22 feet of pavement, you got 2-foot shoulders in your ditch line. You might only be 30 or 35 feet.
Yeah, but if you're doing private road though, that's a 30-foot right of way.
Well, then they might have to. Well, it depends on, yeah, well, but that thing where you said about the edge of the, how'd you put infrastructure?
Project, yeah. And you,
Project limits. It's your slope impact limits.
that's more
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, because then the excess outside of that, it makes no sense to grab it out and then to go back and put it back in.
Yeah,
And
then
then,
you drop it out, you gotta fill the ditches with.
the next thing you know, you're just filling that in and putting grass there, and then leaving the trees all the erosion.
Rest of the take a while, you get erosion problems, you swell the rock, fill up with ground.
Depends on how many days they have the grass seep down before you get 3 inches of rain one night.
Say, my grass ain't doing so good with all the rain, even with all the rain.
We had good roads that washed out, not heavy rain, never mind.
To 79?
So I mean, that's where like,
Oh, well,
the attachments you
Right.
received tonight and.
that's where I was. There's two way. My house flooded out up north, so I ended up back up, I ended up driving back up north. Running pumps.
Projects are, like, going, upcoming projects and how we are.
That was my front.
Inspecting them,
Lord.
and like some general procedures and what.
It was not good.
To do and
No.
not do, so we reached out to NHMA to, like, for general procedures.
But
Okay.
that was my front yard.
So I'm not saying that, and once again, I.
I stick pictures of water.
They told me to look at Pembroke, so if you do see.
Put a half in the crawl space.
Correct it. So I'm welcome to open to comments. I don't know. I'm still having, I asked legal to review it last week. She and got back to me.
What's that?
See the sheen
So this is
Oh, yeah.
this is
and the water
new,
line.
Oh, yeah.
over.
Yeah. we just got-
Yeah,
That's that.
Yeah, it's up in the
basement.
so I wasn't sure.
Like a 4 bedrooms in the back and down there.
Now you gotta pull up all the.
Yeah,
Inspection.
I poured all out already.
So we can
It's
talk
like
about
lighting
it.
$1,000
I
on
mean,
fire.
what I was proposing because of recent things, I should be trying to gather information.
No, I mean, this is good, because this says occupancy, so we did have this all done
Yeah.
before occupancy, so this change is good. This fits in line with that RSA that I had mentioned earlier.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, so it's what they can look at and then add,
So if I
about that kind of stuff.
make a motion.
We don't really have it. even-
I will.
Yeah.
I will. Yep. Even close. You watch basketball? Do I, not really, but I used to, could get Celtics tickets all the time.
He's not good. Or not. Except you said that. If you're not there yet at 12:28.
I can watch the Celtics.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna bring up, and I want
Yeah.
Because it says there about the it's got bone and stuff that's undone.
In the timber walls.
Then it goes on to say the town plan of
You were
89
the assistant coach with the Wolves when they went out of the
Championship
championship.
determines about work.
That was tough to watch basketball games from the owners.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah, just came up 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, thankfully.
I guess, are you keeper on the correction? Yeah.
Unfortunately, the one I've been editing, is not the one that has the stuff.
Oh, that's it. You want me, I can edit this back.
Yeah, you want to send me a reminder about it.
And the last one that says, I'm guaranteed to be released from the town's planner is satisfied that the applicant has complied with all the requirements set forth in the notice of decision. Should that be something when the town's engineer had determined that it's complete, maybe, because then you got someone that's looking at it from.
Yeah, because I'm like,
an engineer, like, you would thought,
that was a question, have to, should be the person.
should be the person. that
Maybe it's a town representative.
Town representative, there you go, that would work, because technically, selectmen, when they accept the road, that's that whole 2 year, and they got that maintenance agreement thing. When that happens, or the 2 years are up, that's when that gets released back, so that is not necessarily, the planning board sets like the bond, but it's not necessarily released until the selectman decides if it's within that. Technically, within that 2 year time period, someone has to determine that the road's to that standard to give them back the money, and then the selectman can accept the road after that. Yeah, so the town representative, that way you could look at an engineer person, someone that knows exactly what they're looking at to make sure that it's.
It is held up to the engineering standards.
Who's the town? Is the town rep definitive enough, kind of shop around?
So it can be whoever the town designates.
Okay.
Town designated.
Designated town rep, designated town rep. Let's say that, so make it clear that the town decides who the rep is,
Yeah,
not.
right now, the town planner is supposed to go out and say, yeah, this meets all our construction standards. That's like- That's it, that's what I was thinking.
Okay. I think we're done. Yep, seconds. From our, I think we've had enough.
What's that?
Yeah, then I already brought up the one, the 12.
Looking over to,
Skid rock.
I mean, it's really more of
Oh, I
a.
know, what's the one that's on there? Just to give her a name.
I got it.
I need to vote.
I looked at it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Used to the whole cycle sunset.
Make a motion to adjourn for something.
The other one is.
I wanted to go for me is like the old school, like 40s or 50s.
Oh, wow. So the bond needs to stay current.
Little
Right.
like
Yeah.
But it says.
that aircraft barrel bags or something like that.
I think I want to. Still my other cat. Scotty. For about 35 minutes. With red lips off some big food and come on.
So that other one there, thing about that, the town representative here. Actually, if you go to this section right here, it said that the planning board and stuff is already gonna have the town engineer look at it, so you can almost take that whole other section out. You said it's in the town designated that the plans of that and events.
The delivery would be there.
So.
So got it.
So if you look at that other.
Picked it out of that. Yeah,
Who's gonna do the inspection?
dismembered it.
Just take it.
Across the lake.
That whole little paragraph.
7 horses died.
Did the whole.
Yeah. Oh, really?
It's basically.
Yeah.
Did you get a picture of my?
Not in the race, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
overall, that weekend.
View across the lake. It's very good.
Oh, really? One of the head trainers got suspended for juicing the horses, you know. I don't know if they give them.
Oh,
Yeah,
you take the wood pen.
something that ain't
Yeah.
good.
No, I didn't.
We should talk to you.
Yeah. I've been pointing that out and I already printed it.
Building stuff. Building.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. What is that?
My art for the day.
This is-
Oh,
we
wow.
talked about this.
That little speck on to the right is my, my dwelling. Oh, I'm in the background of it.
What you want, the mic up?
So if you look
Yeah, Lindsay, I'm actually, you go past the building.
Yeah.
Kind of loops up the hill a little bit, right there on the left.
Oh, okay.
And I'm down, I'm all the way at the end of that dirt road.
Yeah, I think that's when, I think. we just-
So it's a performance.
Like, just drives like a thing.
It says on the-
Well, it's, yeah.
It's by me,
Huh?
up by me.
Well, if I go down four houses, if I go.
You're right, in the little gray house.
Yeah.
It's called the pencil.
Yeah, they redid it or something.
Yeah.
And he's.
A lot of these things I picked up on.
Freaking
So he almost. I was, yeah. How you doing? Everything's doing something.
But a lot of times I'm the one that has to look at it.
Yeah, I know exactly.
But I like to.
Like, cause I swim out there and they come all through there.
What I want to do is, I want to get a look at this,
Big, you can't.
Oh.
see if it's ready.
So on the Astro,
Maybe not. I don't know.
the Astro thing is, it said here, we're gonna have a bunch of.
Yeah.
You look on the Astro and then the green speed.
Yeah.
So go and take
We
that.
want to- that's it.
Oh, did I miss it? Okay.
I'll tell you, this is why.
We should be Astro.
You know, both ones. Can't have it, that's why.
Check.
Well, you can't have a,
Gotta be a three-seater.
That's what Kyle said.
This three-seater is a boat, it's not a jet ski.
right, but
Yep.
you can have a two-seater. It's the single, there's a designation on it.
This was a one,
Yeah,
see it.
but there's a,
But now this is insurance there. It goes out, well, like, that's, that's an awful.
open to adjourn?
Let's make a motion that we adjourn.
So I went down there.
Can we start over?
Take the, friend in. He used to work in my there, also with me, not in finance. I just gotta hold my, hey, Bruce.
The, wetland, I know that we're kind of over, and I want to let everybody know that we received a special work from the consultant. If there was any issues, let it be known. Otherwise, I'm gonna issue PO. Yeah.
But then it also later on, on the print page,
Yeah,
the travel, the property, I think it's more than 4,500.
I'm going to do that, yeah.
It says.
Thank you.
Well, it says anything over and above is gonna be extra, and I get this much to go to a meeting, there's all kinds of stuff in here to where, here's the quote I'm giving you, but I'm gonna charge you extra, and they list.
Oh, right here.
You go into meetings and the hourly rate and all the other stuff.
If I see.
That's what I got.
It said it's not included.
Additional service.
So you want to make sure that is, 45 is it,
If someone looks like,
45 is it. Not to exceed, it's 5,000.
Right.
well, then they're not
Yeah.
following the
Right.
proper procedure.
Wow,
I had one.
probably told them that.
You know, like,
Yep.
people come out.
Then if I'm going-
Don't think they're- Yeah, but
Which is kind of
no.
in front of it. That's well. Yeah, they park there, they get out, they drop down. Yeah, so I'm looking at somebody's. No, it's this one. Oh, no,
Second,
should be.
second.
I,
Roll call for adjourning.
so,
no, I don't,
Okay, all right. Yeah, yeah.
I.
yes.
That's your right.
Thank you very
People
much.
out there fishing one day.